We are now back in open session. I will reconvene the meeting of the Board of Commissioners and will proceed with the regular portion of our meeting. Before doing so, I just want to thank all of you who are online, and for those of you who are in person, thank you so much for your patience as we conducted business during our executive session. I know this is a weekday, but for those of you who have hung around, thank you again, appreciate your patience. The first order of business I do want to cover with you all is to make an announcement about the emergency that happened during the storm. And want the community to know that we know that this has greatly impacted our community with that recent severe storm. And our first priority remains the safety and well-being of our residents. So we are working closely with the Emergency Management Department, with Public Works, their crew, BPU, and so many other dedicated community partners to assess damage and respond to residents' immediate needs. We have put together Wyandotte County's declaration, which formally recognizes the scope and seriousness of the storm's impact on our community. It provides a coordinated framework for the response and helps position the county to seek available assistance. So this declaration is an important step in documenting our losses and demonstrating the need for resources to help residents, businesses, and the UG recover. So here is the declaration. It has been signed and sealed, and we will be sending this off so that we can begin the process for recovery. As mentioned, if any of you were aware, we did do a press conference today at noon. So we are encouraging residents to continue to call 311 to report any issues and hardships. Again, community, please make sure you call 311 so we can document and record those incidents. It is extremely important that residents continue to follow outlined information concerning safe debris disposal, off utilities, unsafe structures, and road closures. Complete information can be found on the homepage of the UG website at wykckk.org. Again, that's wykckk.org. Recovery will take some time, but WYCO, you are so resilient, and the UG is committed to helping residents through every stage as we get back to normal for all residents. As I stated earlier, please try to be as patient as you possibly can. And again, please be safe on the roads, especially where there are power lines on the ground. We ask everyone to look out for your neighbor who may need additional assistance, particularly our older adults, people with disabilities, and those who may be without power or other essential services. I now will ask our Interim County Administrator, Alan Howes, to also make some remarks.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So to follow on the Mayor's comments regarding the declaration of emergency, the UG and the BPU are extensively conducting damage assessments to establish the full impact and extent of the storm. We're documenting damage to public infrastructure, to private property, to businesses, roads, utilities, and other critical facilities. Utilities in particular, because we know how many people lost power and are still without power. So that accurate and timely documentation is an important part of this as we put together the case to see if we can seek funding reimbursement for the costs associated with this. So this declaration establishes the kind of initial step in the county's formal recognition that the storm created these conditions that required a coordinated government response. So this is part of the emergency response sort of framework. It allows us to pursue assistance with federal and state partners should we meet certain cost thresholds. It doesn't automatically guarantee state or federal financial assistance. That eligibility depends, again, on whether we meet those thresholds for the cost of the storm response and subsequent assessments. So we are coordinating with affected partners and with other relevant agencies, prioritizing those emergency services and critical infrastructure, working through the day yesterday and today to make sure that, for example, fire stations remain operable through that and were available to residents throughout those areas. All of our fire stations remained online during the course of the emergency, and access to basic services, and so we can get, for example, the schools reopened and kids back in school. So we will be continuing to document the damage report and the resource coordination. We know there are a lot of community partners that have stepped forward, a lot of hands that have reached out to help with this process of recovery. So we'll continue to get the information, and as the mayor said, we encourage people to continue to contact 311 so that we can get the information and provide the best information that we have back to residents as we know it. There will be more information to come as we, for example, put together a debris removal plan and other aspects of the recovery. So again, as the mayor said, we ask for a little bit of patience in this and know that we are working, and we got a lot of people working very hard on this for the recovery from the storm.
Thank
Mayor?
you. And I do want to just make a big shout out to all the staff and the Public Works team and BPU teams. Some of those folks are still out there. So let's just send up our prayers to all the families. To my knowledge, we had no deaths that were reported and no serious injuries were reported. So I'm very thankful for that and appreciate all the hard work, particularly in District 1. Commissioner Howard was out. He came in the office. He had debris all in his head, and I could tell that he was very invested in being a part of helping our community and getting debris and what have you in his district. And appreciate Commissioner Bynum and Commissioner Davis, who were all at the press conference. We stood on behalf of the entire commission board. So I want our other commissioners to know that we were represented. But this has been a difficult time, but we're coming through it, shining bright as much as possible. So thank you again to everyone and residents. We want you to continue to feel free to call the mayor's office at 913-573-5010, or make sure you call 311 so that we can get that information documented, okay? All right. The other two announcements we have for tonight is that we are approaching the 1-year anniversary of the tragic line of duty death of Officer Hunter Simasic. Next Wednesday, August 26th, 2026 at 2 p.m. We invite the community to join us for a dedication ceremony renaming Campus Boulevard to Officer Hunter Simasic Boulevard. This event will take place at the State Avenue entrance at the community college, and a reception will follow immediately at the Mary Ann Flunder Lodge by the lake. The K5 Bridge reopens ahead of schedule. Woo, woo! Y'all can clap. Go ahead. You can clap online too. After nearly 3.5 years of repairs, construction, and traffic disruptions, the K5 Bridge over the Union Pacific Railroad tracks has reopened to traffic. This is especially welcome news for the Fairfax Industrial District. Earlier this year, unexpected structural issues discovered during construction pushed KDOT's anticipated reopening to October 26. Crews were ultimately able to complete the necessary work and reopen the bridge well ahead of that revised schedule. So the reopening restores an important route into and out of Fairfax and should provide some much needed relief for employee commutes, truck traffic, and businesses throughout the district. Great job, KDOT, and I'm so glad that bridge is open. Now they can stop calling me and ask me, when is that bridge gonna get open? All right, We will now move to the Land Bank consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn as the Board of Commissioners and call us back to order as the Land Bank Board of Trustees.
Item so move.
Davis, second.
It's been moved by Bynum and second by Davis. Roll call, please.
Roll call Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Pacheco.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Kump.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Vote is 9-0. Motion carries.
Thank you. Now we're on to our Land Bank Board of Trustees consent agenda. Does any member of the commission or our interim county administrator wish to set aside any item on the Land Bank consent agenda? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve all items as submitted.
Howard, second.
All right, it's been moved by Ramirez and second by Howard. Roll call, please.
Roll call Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Hill. Pacheco.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Kump.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Vote is 9-0. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn as the Land Bank Board of Trustees and call us back to order as the Board of Commissioners.
Item so move.
Howard, second.
Bynum move, second by Howard. Roll call.
Roll call Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Pacheco.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Kump.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Vote is 9-0. Motion carries.
Awesome. That takes us to the regular consent agenda. Does any member of the commission or our interim county administrator wish to set aside any item on the regular consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the regular consent agenda will be voted on one by one. I will entertain a motion for approval of the regular consent agenda if there are no set-asides.
Don't move to approve.
Davis, second.
It has been moved by Kump and second by Davis. Roll call, please.
Roll call Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Pacheco.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Kump.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Vote is 9-0. Motion carries.
So what are we doing? Okay, we have one item now under the standing. We've moved to the standing committee agenda. One moment, please. Go ahead.
So interim county administrator Alan Howell, I was just going to suggest, Mayor, maybe we could move item 12.1, which is the MOU for the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 4 ahead of the sales tax item. I know we have several members of police command staff here who I'm sure would be interested in listening to the sales tax discussion, but we have the MOU that's ready to go. It has been approved by the union. It includes 3 3s and 3s, goes from January 1st of this year through 2028. And so if there's no objection, we could dispense with that and then move to the 2 remaining substantive items, the sales tax and the budget workshop.
Okay. I think it's already been moved. So this is the sales tax.
Just do that.
All right, does any of our commissioners have an issue with that, moving that agenda item up? Okay. Do we need to make a motion for that? So I need a motion to approve
Just the item.
the resolution.
Pacheco, motion to approve.
Bynum second. A resolution of memorandum of understanding between FOP and Unified Government.
Yep. Ooh. We had a motion from, okay, and a second by Pacheco. Okay, so it's been moved by Bynum and second by Pacheco. Roll call, please.
Roll call Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Hill. Pacheco.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Kump.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Vote is 9-0. Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners. All right, we'll now go back to the item number 10.1. This is the request, the adoption of a resolution and approval of an ordinance related to a special purpose retailers sales tax. Thank you. Both countywide and citywide. This matter was heard by the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee, chaired by Commissioner Ramirez. on Monday, August 20th, and fast-tracked to this meeting. Commissioner Ramirez, would you provide the background for this opportunity?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item was heard on Monday night. Commissioners, we had robust conversation, and we had community members who did give comments as well. We spent a lot of time speaking with legal about what the sales tax can be used for, but more specifically, if it is within our ability to take a portion of those sales tax and commit it to a specific area in our community. And I think that was a lot of the discussion we had as a committee, was just that legal piece. And at the end, I had the consensus that we felt that this was a bigger conversation to have with the full board. And that's the motion that we made, was to bring it forward with no recommendation so that we can have a fuller conversation. And so that, I don't know if it gave legal any time to look in some of those legal issues that were mentioned during the standing committee. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, I'll ask maybe staff to come forward who are involved do we have everybody, I think Public Works staff as well? Come on up. All right, so as we get started here this evening, I do want to thank staff, the budget staff, legal staff, parks staff, and public works staff who've all been kind of involved in putting together information related to this. So this item, as Commissioner Ramirez mentioned, came out of AHS Standing Committee, and it brings forward ideas or options for consideration by the full commission for sales tax that are special purpose sales tax allowable under Kansas law. So we'll just kind of run through this fairly quickly. It's a little more than 15 slides, Mayor. I apologize. Message has gotten through. We're good. All right. Sales tax in Kansas. So first point, it requires approval by voters. Any action by this commission would be to place an item onto a ballot, and then it would go before the voters, and it would require a majority vote in order to go into effect. The state of Kansas has a cap of 11.5% in total on sales tax. So that's the stacking of all the state and local sales taxes, exclusive of CIDs and TDDs, which can sit on top of that. The state sales tax rate is 6.5%. So the majority of the sales tax is collected by the state. At the county level, there's a general sales tax of 1%. And the way that gets distributed under state law is that 25% of that county sales tax goes to the county general fund, and 75% of that gets distributed to cities based on formula under state law. Under Kansas state law, there are two allowable special purpose county taxes for sales tax. One is related to health and health services. The other is related to jail or law enforcement center facility. Under Kansas law, the special purpose sales tax is allowed in increments of 0.25, and it does differ between the county and the city on those increments. So the minimum increment you can have on the county special purpose sales tax is 0.25. On the city side, there's a current general sales tax of 1% that goes into the general fund on the city side. And there are special purpose city sales tax currently. One is the EMS tax, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then the other one is the public safety and infrastructure sales tax. Again, under Kansas law, the city special purpose taxes are allowed in increments of 0.05% up to 1%. Because we already have these other two special purpose sales taxes in place, there is 0.375% remaining available to in the city side for a special purpose sales tax. When it comes to revenue, on the county side, our research team has estimated that each 25 cents is about $12 million annually. And on the city side, each eighth of a cent or 0.125 is $5.3 million annually. So a little bit less on the city side, but pretty close. So one of the questions that came up in the discussion on Monday night was how are the sales tax allocated? And so just wanted to reiterate that the commission would approve all appropriations. When you talk about the sales tax, you're talking about revenue and raising revenue. The commission approves all those appropriations. The commission reviews the revenues and expenditures annually as part of the budget process. We have the annual third-party audit of funds, and then also that residents have input into the annual budget. So all those remain in place on a special purpose sales tax. When we did the resident survey, this was earlier this year, one of the questions was around a special sales tax and whether there was interest in that for targeted purposes. And what the results say is there could be interest, but it needs to be narrowly targeted and for specific things that people can see. And so on the left side, you see kind of the very supportive, neutral, not supportive. This is across the entire survey that was done, which is a representative survey. And then on the right side, you see those areas that were highest ranked in terms of if there was a sales tax, what would you like to see it used for? You could see that unhoused and affordable housing was the issue that kind of stood off, followed by Parks and Rec, public safety, street repaving. So let's talk specifically about the county special purpose health sales tax. And I'm going to turn it over to Council Wendy Green to talk about this.
Good evening, Deputy Chief Counsel Wendy Green. So under the statutes, up to 1% of a county-wide retailer sales tax could be used for healthcare services, and that could be done in increments of 0.25%. Under KSA 12-187B5 is where we get the authority to do this. And the language in the statute is directly there in the presentation. It does say healthcare services shall include but not be limited to those following activities. A local health department does fall in that: preventative healthcare services, mental health services, indigent health care. Those are all things that would fall underneath this statute. And one thing I will mention, under this very specific provision, and according to several of the Attorney General opinions that I've read, unlike the other county-wide sales tax provisions, 12-187B5 specifically is only for the county. It is not distributed to the different taxing entities within the county. So any of the revenue raised by this countywide sales tax for healthcare services would stay in the county for the purposes it's collected for.
So what could that special purpose county sales tax be used to address? And one of the main areas that's come up in a number of conversations has been around how to address the unhoused in the community. And we have capital funding through the ARPA funds and through Cerner funds of about $4 million that can be used for the purchase of a building and the rehab of a building and a facility. What we don't have is any operating funding to operate any such facility or to provide the services that would go into people that were coming to that facility to help move them to a kind of a better place and move them out of homelessness and into more stable conditions. So how could this special purpose county health sales tax do that? As Ms. Green said, indigent care is one of the terms specifically cited in the state statute, and that's a fairly broad term. But certainly people who are unhoused are indigent. It can also provide mental health services. It can be used for substance abuse. It can be used for seniors and to prevent seniors from falling into homelessness. Seniors are one of the fastest growing populations of homelessness that we've seen at our cold weather shelter. So we know it's a growing challenge. Another area is around paramedicine. So our fire department has a paramedicine outreach team of one person that goes out and does work with our unhoused population to provide medicine, to help support and take care of them, but that's one person and doesn't meet the need. So this could be used to expand the paramedicine outreach, which would also overall kind of lower the number of 911 calls we're receiving from people who were because they're in better health. Another way is by improving overall community health outcomes. It's often noted that Wyandotte County does rank fairly low in the health rankings in the state of Kansas. And so this could be used to do things like expand access to medical care. We do have a low number of primary care physicians and dentists per 100,000 residents. We're below the Kansas average and the US average in both of those areas. It could be used to support mental health crisis intervention teams. These would go out and be on the ground support for intervening in mental health crises. Community health workers to connect residents with services, reducing chronic illness and things like infant mortality. So all of these are possibilities under this state law that could be used for the county special purpose sales tax. Shifting gears, we'll talk for a minute about the city special purpose sales tax. And I will turn again over to Ms. Green to talk about the existing city special purpose sales taxes.
Again, Wendy Green, Deputy Chief Counsel. One thing I will mention, going back to the county special purpose sales tax, that provision under 12187B5, that is the only provision in which we can use a countywide special purpose sales tax. We have no more room under the general purpose countywide sales tax, so we can't increase that. And under the statutes, the only provisions allowed for Wyandotte County for special purpose sales taxes are for healthcare services or to use to build a jail or other public safety facilities, which we don't have any in the works right now. So the only special purpose countywide sales tax provision we could use would be the one for healthcare services. But for special purpose city sales taxes, we do have two in effect right now. The first is the 0.25% for emergency medical services, which was put into effect in 2004. Bless you. This was put into effect before the state changed the statute. Back then, cities and counties could charter out of certain provisions of the sales tax statutes or other taxing statutes. And so we did, and we instituted this special purpose sales tax. It does not have a sunset provision. Now, under the law, all city special purpose sales taxes have an expiration of 10 years. So does it have to last 10 years? No. It could be for a shorter period if you wanted it to be, but whether you specify, if you didn't specify a period, it would expire at the end of 10 years. But that particular one does not, because when they did change the law, they said any special purpose sales tax provision that you already had in place when the law changed would stay until it was repealed. So that one stays until the governing body decides to repeal it. The other one we have in effect is the 0.375% public safety and neighborhood infrastructure special purpose city sales tax. And that's the one that gets divided a third between police, sheriff, and public works, with a small provision going to parks. That does have the 10-year renewal. So we did initiate it, and we have already renewed it once, and it will be up again for renewal because it sunsets currently the end of June in 2030. So we would begin that process if the governing body so chooses to request to renew it, and we'd begin that process again in 2028, most likely. So we have, under the cap, per statutes, we have 0.375% left, or 1/8% left for a special city purpose sales tax. Yeah, I'm sorry, 3/8. Sorry, I can't do math. That's why I'm a lawyer. 0.3% special purpose city sales tax is what we have left to work with. And again, the city's special purpose sales taxes go in 0.05 increments. So they're different than the county, which is 0.25. I don't know why that is, but that's just what the statute states. So, but right now we have the 0.375 left. So in your proposed ordinance, that's what we have put in there, is the 0.375%, which is the 0.375.
Okay, so there are two areas on the city side that come up. These were also from the resident surveys we saw earlier. And those are around parks and community centers, aquatic facilities, and the like, as well as roads, sidewalks, and bridges. And I think in the course of the budget conversation this year, you all have seen the gap on the capital side in particular for both of these areas. And that's really the thought or intent would be to focus this funds on capital in these areas specifically. I think for both of these areas, we have seen and our departments have shown that when they have the resources, they've been able to deliver. When there was additional funding available for road paving, we saw the state in parallel get paved this year. That was from a one-time infusion of capital dollars that was available. We have seen similarly on the park side with the federal funds that were available, COVID and post-COVID, that they were able to deliver improvements in a number of parks to the tune of many millions of dollars in a way that hadn't seen those kind of investments in probably a generation. So it's really thinking about how can we get capital funding to close the gap in capital and build out, maintain our existing infrastructure that we have. So now I'm going to turn it over to our Parks Director, Angel Ferrara, to talk about parks, community centers, and aquatics.
Thank you, Alan. Angel Ferrara, Director for Parks and Recreation. And next slide, please. So want to walk us through a high-level snapshot of what our inventory looks like for Parks and Recreation. So currently, the department manages approximately 2,600 acres of parkland. 778 acres of that number would be city parks. Additionally, our department also manages facilities, and so we manage approximately almost 128 million across 10 facilities. The other three not shown here would be our 3 banquet halls and county parks. So out of the 7 city community centers, that's roughly 92,000 square feet. So here on the chart, you'll see those 7 community centers listed and the approximate year that they have been built. Our oldest community center at Armourdale is roughly 105 years old, and our newest community center is roughly 38 years old, which is the Joe E. Amayo Center. We, like Alan said, have been able to do quite a bit over the last few years with federal dollars into our facilities. However, we know that the needs are still great. We've brought forward some requests in the budget process as it relates to facilities. An example of that would be the pedestrian bridge at the Bealey Community Center. So just to give an example of just one of the needs that a lot of our centers are experiencing. I'll also note too, in doing some of this work, best practice could be for facilities that are 50 to 75 years old, really looking at a significant investment in those facilities. And then also facilities that are 75 years and older. Agencies, especially in Parks and Recreation, are often faced with the decision on a comprehensive renovation or if it's a replacement of the facility. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the recent capital investments in our Parks and Rec system since 2022, so the last 4 years. So since 2022, approximately $13.3 million has been invested into our Parks and Recreation system. Wanted to show this chart tonight, and I will walk you through it. So we've kind of broke this out into three geographical areas. So if you're looking at parks east of 635, the department's invested roughly 8.9 million. Also, out of our 54 parks, 41 of our parks lie east of 635. And so you can see that here in blue. Moving along in the orange, so we've invested roughly 3.7 million between 435 and 635. Out of the 54 parks, 12 of our parks lie in that area. And lastly, we have one park, it's our Wyandotte County Park, so not a city park, west of 435, and recent investment of 700,000. I also will note 2025 is one of our better years of funding, but I will point out that that capital investment in 2025, out of that total, I think it's like 6.5 million, roughly 78% of that capital investment came from grant and federal funding. I think that's really important, as Alan said, not to belabor the point, but we've been able to do a lot over the last few years, needed stuff with CARES Act and ARPA dollars, and we all know that that's just not available anymore. So next slide, please.
I'll just add one point too on this. So part of what drove the spending was the federal rules around where the funds could be spent. So CDBG dollars, for example, could only be spent in certain areas. And so that, you see that significant spend east of 635, that was in part because of that CDBG, those CDBG funding requirements. And it also, I think, points to the challenge, which is we know we have parks across the community. We now have park needs across the community. How do we provide for the capital needs in those parks from east to west, from north to south?
And then one thing I will also add on that slide. So for example, I know we've been before you all this year with budget requests, and I do just want to make a note that Parks and Rec made a total request for about $8.5 million this year and just critical prioritized needs for the department. And I know the budget hasn't been passed, but if what's proposed is close to being passed, it looks like our department could get roughly 3.7 million, which means we still have about a $5 million request of unfunded needs for the department just for 27 alone. So kind of putting that number into perspective. Next slide, please. So before we get into the numbers, want to talk a little bit about what a proposed investment in Parks and Recreation could look like in a dedicated sales tax, an investment in quality of life. And we've really identified, I think, 5 areas in our department that you could see investment in. The first one being aquatics. We only have one city pool, that is Parkwood Pool. It is over 50 years old. And we've recently had to make some pretty significant repairs. We've been doing the work the last 2 years. I'm trying to determine what the best path moving forward is so we can continue to keep an asset like that running. We also know our community and residents would like to see more opportunities for aquatics, whether that's additional spray parks or more neighborhood pools. So keeping in mind what a longer term vision for aquatics could look like through a master plan. Just talked about community centers, so really looking at investing in our spaces and modernizing those spaces. Recreation destinations also as an area that could be focused on. An example, Sunflower Hills Clubhouse. We've brought that project forward. We've been doing that work over the last 2 years as well with assessments and getting plans in place for what that approach could look like moving forward. We also have other areas in our inventory for recreation destinations such as City Park. That's where a lot of our youth and adult baseball happens. We have Eisenhower that has several amenities for the community and a partnership that we have with the school district where we serve the same community. Also just looking at our parks and open spaces, so investing in some of our parks, and then also we know we have residents that have a desire to see a new park, city park, in the western portion of our county. And then also an investment in trails and community. When we did our master plan in 2017, one of the top 5 amenities that residents said that they would like to see more of was trails. Next slide. So walking through this slide, I want to just talk through in total what this could look like. So a 3/8 cents dedicated sales tax option for Parks and Recreation would equate to approximately 16 million annually. roughly 160 million over 10 years. So we've kind of broken that out. You can see that here. And then looking at the quarter cent option, what that could look like annually would be approximately 11 million with $110 million investment over 10 years. And so I'll go into this a little bit further on the next slide. So we wanted to do some work to put together what a high-level feasibility of implementation could look like. So looking at the first 3 years, we know we brought projects forward. Right now in this budget process, even in the next 5-year capital improvement plan that we know we have needs for. So if we kind of looked at that information and what we've already been working on and already put into our budget for recommendations, you can see some of that reflected here. So in looking at what a first 3 years could look like, also knowing that a level of community engagement, a lot of community engagement would need to happen on some of these fronts, but we know we have a need for a replacement of a pool. So kind of looking at that in the first 3 years. We know Sunflower Hills Clubhouse, we've had similar issues there just with the facility, even this year alone. Looking at expanding our park services and offerings and trying to deliver that new park out in the western portion of our county. So we know those are 3 areas that we've been doing a lot of work in and that are coming up right now before us. So we know community center improvements, our facilities, we have those needs. Again, I gave the example of the pedestrian bridge at B. Lee. Could name off a few more. Also looking at park improvements overall and then also trails. So 3/8 cent sales tax in the first 3 years would be a $48 million investment, and then a quarter cent would be the $33 million. Next slide, please. Can't show the first 3 without showing what possibly the last 7 could look like. And I think this was really important just to demonstrate that we have put some thought into this. We do have a pretty good pulse on a high level what the needs are, but we also, it's not lost on us that a lot of community engagement would need to happen, and we would need to really rely on guidance from our elected officials and community to really implement and execute what the last 7 could look like. You can see here a successful track record, hopefully, of delivering on 3 projects or a couple projects in the first 3 years. That would allow us time to really work together as the organization and the community to determine what is the future of our community centers. What do we want that to look like long term? How do we want to invest and implement that for the last 7 years of potentially a 10-year dedicated sales tax? Similar for aquatics, that would give us time to do an aquatics master plan, determine is it spray parks that the community wants more of? Is it a new pool somewhere in the county that the community is also interested in? And also for park improvements and trails as well. Next slide. Actually, that is my the last slide for Parks and Rec, and I'll just kind of say that our department continues to utilize the resources that we have. We try to maximize the dollars when we can, go after grant funds. But this summer alone, with 2 of our facilities, we had some pretty significant repairs that needed to be made. And that is just something I know that our team has been working on communicating that is a pattern that we are noticing in our inventory, whether that's in the parks or with the facilities. And then I think also just referencing, if you go back and see what the levels of capital investment for the department has been, even just over the 4 years, which have been some of our better years with the available grant and federal funding, it becomes challenging to continue to maintain the inventory and the assets that we do have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we will turn it over to Public Works to talk about roads, sidewalks, and bridges. And I'll just note too, both of these teams and leadership have been also actively dealing with the storm response over the last 2 days as well. So I appreciate, we're definitely multitasking here and wanted to bring forward this additional information, some of which again was based on the discussion that we heard on Monday night. So I will turn it over to Troy Shaw and Brandon Grover to talk about this.
Troy Shaw, Public Works Director. Since these are roads, sidewalks, and bridges, and Brandon is our Road and Bridge Program Manager, I'm going to let him take this one and answer questions.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Commission. I'm not going to belabor talking about our needs. We've talked about those for years. You all have heard us many, many times talk about the 30 million for streets, the 14 for bridges, things like that. You know those needs. It's up to you if you want to decide how much you want to invest in those assets. Move to the next slide, please. What I do want to talk about is what we could potentially do with what we're talking about here tonight. Since we're talking about a 3/8 cent sales tax, one of the easiest ways to break it up is into an eighth. So 1/8 of this would be approximately $5.33 million. And these are the kind of things that we could accomplish with that 1/8. So if we were to be given 1/8 in 1 year, we could do 41 lane miles of road. We could do 21 miles of curb and gutter. We could do 55 alleys. All those are individual things that we couldn't do all of them in 1 year, but if we were given that 5.3, we could do all of that in one. We could do each one of those things in 1 year. If you want to think about what it could be if we were possibly given more, you would just multiply those. If you want to think about it, if we were given 2/3 of it, multiply it by 2, for the whole thing by 3. We also added on this slide our system context, so you can just see how much of our system we could affect with these kind of things. So I know alleys has been a big hot button issue this year. With $5.3 million, we could address 55 miles of our alleys. We only have 119 miles of alleys total. So with 2 years worth of dedicated funding, full dedicated funding to this, we could redo almost all of our alleys. Something to consider as you're moving forward. Most of the things do get clumped into our pavement preservation program. So when we move on to these next slides and you hear us talking about our pavement preservation program and how we move through that and how we prioritize that, keep in mind that pavement, curb and gutter, alleys, ADA ramps, all that go into our pavement program as well. So I think Commissioner Bynum is probably the only one here whenever we went through this. Probably Commissioner Ramirez and Commissioner Davis have probably heard us go through this. But back in 2020, we decided that the old model of how we did our pavement preservation program didn't work. We were giving each district an equal share every year. While that seems like a really great way to do it, every professional service that took a look at our network said that you're never going to make any headway doing that. Different areas of your city need different things. They need funded at different levels. You need to look at a different way of prioritizing. So the first thing we did was actually looked at the whole network as a whole. That's the most common way to do it. That didn't really work out for us because of the way our city was built out, because the types of base underneath our roads, things like that, the type of curb that's there. We just couldn't, it didn't make sense to do it that way. So we decided that instead of going back to commission districts, we broke the city up into 6 different zones based on the type of treatments that the roads could use, based on what's underneath the road, the years they were built out, the type of traffic they see, and things like that. So those are the 6 different zones you see here. And we decided that instead of doing all of our money in 1 zone a year, we would split it up to try and touch as much as we could. And we did 2 zones a year. So what we're currently given every year since 2021, we split in half and we break apart. 2025 was a different year. 2026 was a different year because the extra money we got from the Plaza the Speedway TIF, those weren't planned to do, but we added those in because we had the funding to address them. This goes on a 3-year cycle. So the first year we look at something in an area, it's the planning and coordination. We look at that, we look at funding, we look at the needs. The next year we actually look at the concrete needs. So we go out and drive the areas we're proposing to do. We see what curb and gutter needs to be replaced, what ADA ramps need to be replaced, and we work with our utility partners in the metro to make sure that they're getting in, fixing their utilities before we actually do our pavement stuff. So hopefully they don't have to come back and cut our brand new pavement. And then the 3rd year, we put the hat on top of everything with the new pavement. It's been very, very successful since we've been doing this. We've got a lot of coordination. Everybody, the utility partners seem to be very, very on board with this. So like we were talking about, if we were given that 5.33 million, that's an additional 41 lane miles a year for a total over the kind of 6-year cycle for this, because we rotate, every 3 years, gets through all the zones. That's an extra 245 miles of road paved. You've heard us say we've got 2,400 lane miles of road. So that's about 11% of our network. So this 5.3 only gets us about 11%. Next slide, please. And this kind of breaks it down even further in more detail, just for your own knowledge that you can use in the future when you're looking at things or when you want to ask questions about when this area is going to be up or something like that. This is the schedule for when the zones work, and it reads across. So like in 2027, we'll be planning for zone 1. In 2028, we'll be doing concrete and utility work in zone 1. And then in 29, we'll be doing pavement work in zone 1, and so on and so forth. And then the bottom chart just breaks it down a little bit more by those zones to tell you what years we would be there, doing pavement work, what could actually be accomplished in those, and what kind of percentage it would get into those areas. Again, if you wanted to look at this on a grander scale, you take those numbers and you multiply it by 2 or 3 to figure out what percentage you might be willing to allocate towards this effort. So before I leave you tonight, I want to echo something that Troy brought up on Monday. Historically, the unified government has done a very great job at trying to touch as many different things as possible every year. We sprinkle little bits here and there, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really get us anywhere. It's hard to get wins whenever we're breaking up our limited funding that much. So instead of asking for all the money to come to public works, as much as we would love that, we're asking you to solve a problem. We're asking you to identify a problem, work the solution with staff, expert staff that would love to do this on all fronts, and solve a problem. Whether that be an aquatic center, whether it be community centers, whether it be pavement preservation, whether you want to redo the street light system across the city, whether you want to make sidewalks and trails improvements, pick a problem. And it doesn't have to be just one, because there's obviously going to be $160 million coming in. It's a lot of money. You can solve a lot of problems. But if we spread it out, we're not going to get anything accomplished. Anybody have any questions?
We'll hold on questions till the end. Thank you, Brandon, for that. And part of the reason we wanted to include some of this additional information here and in the parks was one of the questions around how would the funds be used. And just wanted to show that there's been quite a bit of thought over many years that has gone into this by departments. They understand the assets and the condition of their assets. They understand the needs. They've brought forward those needs in budget conversations, and if this was passed by the voters and approved, would be able to go to work on identified and knowable needs that currently exist. And also follow up on something that Mr. Grover said too, which is we also know that this doesn't meet all the needs, right? And but these can be significant incremental steps. As you heard, it could change how we do all the alleyways in the city. It could add those lane miles. It could add new trails and new parks in different parts of our community. So it doesn't do everything, but it could be a significant step in several areas. So the question also comes up, how much does this cost? What are we talking about here? When we talk about a 3/8 cent, this just kind of gives you a sense of what that additional cost is on kind of everyday items. I'm not going to read through this. You can see those. So just again, to kind of give you a sense of the scale when we're talking about a 3/8 cent sales tax. And if you had a 1/4 cent county sales tax on a $100 purchase, that would be 25 cents, or a 1/4 on a $100 purchase. Again, on a $100 purchase, a 3/8 cents sales tax on the city side would be 38 cents. Again, the county side, it would be any sales that were in Kansas City, Kansas, and Bonner Springs and Edwardsville. Parks and Infrastructure one would only be on sales that took place in Kansas City, Kansas. So we have a couple of options here that we brought forward. And one other point I'll just make before we just kind of jump into the options, and I think what Council brought it up earlier, but these special purpose sales taxes are not STAR bond eligible. So they sit outside of STAR bonds. So general sales tax are what gets pledged as part of STAR bonds. These for the EMS and our current parks and infrastructure, or our current public safety and infrastructure sales tax comes even in those areas where we have STAR bonds. These similarly would also be coming into the unified government in areas where we do have star bonds. So there is a county-side resolution on a county special purpose sales tax for health. Uh, This is in the amount of 25 cents, again, at commission's discretion. And then on the city side, there were several options that were brought up in conversation. So we just wanted to have two options here. One where we've got the 3/8 cent sales tax, and that's between parks and infrastructure. And then option B is where the 3/8 cent is for parks capital improvements solely. So that was another option that was discussed. Certainly, there could be option C, which would be infrastructure only as well. So those are kind of the options that are before you. The next steps would be, it would require commission approval to place any measure onto the ballot. The election commissioner has a September 1st deadline to add items to the November 2026 ballot. And then if approved, the Kansas Department of Revenue is who collects sales tax and then distributes that out to localities. And they would either start that collection in April or June, depending on what their timing for getting those put into place would be. I think that is the conclusion of our presentation, and
Okay.
to take questions.
Just want to make a note, even though it should be on the slide and it's not, options, Commissioners, on page 27, there is an option C, and that is the same 3/8 of 1% for the purpose of financing infrastructure projects such as roads, bridges, and sidewalks. I do have a question about on Attorney Wendy, on page 8, on the special county sales tax to address unhoused. Would that include youth? Like servicing youth as well?
Wendy Green, Deputy Chief Counsel, as long as we could make a case for it falling under healthcare, absolutely. If they were indigent youth, absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
I just wanted to make sure, because they did point out care for seniors, but I was just concerned that it was only seniors that you could do this for and not, some of our youth.
No, I believe youth would fall under that as well.
Okay.
And we put seniors on there. The statute specifically calls out seniors and
Yeah.
seniors from
I
falling.
just want to make sure it didn't exclude youth. 'Cause we do
No.
have a large population of youth. Okay.
Correct. No, it does not exclude youth.
Terry Garrison, Interim Director for the Health Department. That would also be dependent on parental approval, depending on the services.
Okay. Thank you. Any of our commissioners? Commissioner Ramirez?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You kind of said what I was going to say, your very first point about the option C. I know my comments on Monday night, not for the sales tax, just based on just the how the economy works as looking at the moment. But what Troy did say on Monday has been sitting with me and has been resonating with me of, if we're going to ask our community to make an investment, we need to have a central problem. And I think on the city side, our central problem is our infrastructure. We can continue to beautify our parks and put investments in small business development and economic development. But if we continue to have failing infrastructure, all of that is for what? It's for nothing. And so I'm of the mind of option C, of allowing the 3/8 cents sales tax to be solely for infrastructure, including streets, sidewalks, and bridges. That is solving a problem. That will actually move a needle for us here in our community. I love our parks. Everyone knows I am big heart for our Parks Department. But what was said Monday really stayed with me throughout the week of let's move the needle. And moving the needle is getting our infrastructure where it needs to be. We are way behind. And so that, I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramirez. Commissioner Count.
Thank you, Mayor. Come to at large. I was obviously at the standing committee meeting Monday, and I did ask this question on Monday, but I just want to get it on the record for the full commission. We cannot excise certain commodities out of the special sales tax, city or county. And in other words, we can't say only tobacco, but not groceries. Is that correct?
Wendy Green, Deputy Chief Counsel, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. For the city special sales tax for parks, I would imagine that can only be used for city parks. If it's a city special sales tax, obviously it frees up money for county parks because it augments their entire budget. But that, in order to track that accurately, that can only be used for city parks.
Correct. The city's special sales tax would have to be used for city assets.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And I appreciate Commissioner Ramirez's comments. I do want to, this was said on Monday night as well, that sales tax are the most regressive tax. And what that means is they disproportionately impact lower income families. And that's something that we need to keep in mind whatever we do tonight. But on the other end of the spectrum, what sales tax allows us to do is offset some of the property tax increases that we require, because you can, give a shot in the arm to our budget for these specific items. And maybe we don't have to raise property taxes to a level if we have sales tax revenue to fund infrastructure or parks or county health, whatever we may decide to do. But I want us to keep in mind that this tax is, if we pass any taxes on sales tax tonight, it will disproportionately impact lower income families. They'll feel this more than higher income families. So I just want us to all keep that in mind. I don't know where I'm going to fall tonight. I appreciate the presentation. I appreciate all the work staff has done for no other reason than it highlights really the gap in our needs versus what we have. I might have a few other questions, but I'm going to cede the microphone for my fellow commission members. Thank you.
Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I'll state that I'm in favor of placing both the city and the county sales tax on the ballot for the public to vote. Question on slide 3, please. It says each 8 cent raises 5.33 million annual. So that means the projection of 3/8 of a cent would be approximately 16 million annual. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Okay. Last page, page 27. I just wanted to clarify within our ballot language for the special purpose city sales tax, whichever one we go, A, B, or C, and I guess really A or B, I just want to make sure we're not limiting ourselves with the language, because parks, like it says, including parks, community centers, and trails. And I don't hear aquatics center or golf clubhouse when I hear those words. So I'm just asking that whatever the language be, that we make sure that it includes the things we're actually trying to get done with a sales tax like that. So I would be by the way, in favor of option A, which is for both parks and infrastructure.
Wendy Green, Deputy Chief Counsel. So after the meeting Monday, I did go back and look into and research the questions that were asked, and specifically, can you designate like a certain area of the city to benefit from the tax. And what it comes down to is it's public funds that must be used for public purposes. So you could designate something within the city or something within the park system to benefit from the city's sales tax, like a specific parks asset, because theoretically, every citizen could use that asset. So it would be for a public purpose. So if you wanted to make sure aquatics were specifically singled out, we could change the language to specifically refer to aquatics as well.
And
Um,
I think I'm going the other way. I want the language to be broad so that all things can be considered,
Mhm.
not
And-
just a park, a community center, or a trail.
Right, and by also using the language, and let me go directly to the language, I want to make sure I get it right, that we said capital. Yeah, park capital improvement projects would include aquatics, because aquatics, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that parks includes those in their capital improvement projects. Pools, splash pads, that would be a capital improvement project.
Are you looking for something particular, Commissioner Bynum,
No,
that's not in
just-
there?
I'm just concerned as to whether capital improvement projects, including parks, community centers, and trails, is restrictive. That's my concern, and I would want the language to be broad enough for parks and infrastructure that it includes the things we know we're trying to get done.
Mhm.
That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
so it could just be a matter of examples
Mhm.
such as,
Right.
right,
And if we put examples in there, though, that has to be one of the items that the sales tax is used for.
But couldn't we say including but not limited to?
And by saying park capital improvement projects,
covers a broad.
that would
That's-
cover.
That's all I'm trying to express is not to limit what we can do.
Mhm. Yep, and I think that's covered in the language of the ordinance. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to make sure we understand, not just the commission, but even the public. One of the things that came up Monday was,
Commissioner Hill, can you talk in the microphone?
sure, I really got a big mouth, but I will do. So one of the things that we heard and we were considering on Monday night was the fact that it was relatively broad. And many of the community members thought there should be more specifics. But what I'm trying to understand tonight, which I think I understand, is even though it's broad, when it comes down to actually voting for what is going to be done, what is going to be funded, it comes back through the commission board for us to decide and vote on what will be accepted. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. That comes
Okay.
through with the budget process, and that is absolutely correct.
Okay.
And It's
So,
it's not that you can't make it specific, you can use more specific language, but to give yourself flexibility to be able to include multiple projects, you could leave it the way it is with the language that's there now, and then specify the projects through the budget process.
okay, so for instance, it mentions trails, and the question I asked, okay, is this for Quindale Ruins trails or the Carl Valley Trail? I was looking for some specifics, and that's when I think it was you maybe that clarified. No, you don't have to be specific now. You can do that later, and just figure out as a commission board kind of what we would like to have funded.
Right, by saying trails, it could be for both.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the same thing under healthcare services for the indigent. Um, Same thing, we're not being real specific here, but when we get down to the point where we actually vote for it, then we designate what that will be for.
Well, in the budget process, right.
Yeah, I understand. It's the
The
budget.
money collected has to be used for what the ordinance designates it as, because that's what the public is voting for. So you do have to use it for those types of programs, but the specific program that you're funding the money or funneling the money to, that would be voted on during the budget process,
Okay,
as long as it falls within the parameters of the language used in the ordinance.
okay. Thank you.
I do want to point out that there were some questions that were brought up in standing committee that were not technically answered. And so I want to address some of those, and if you can answer them, that would be great. Can the ballot ordinance language provide greater specificity without unnecessarily restricting future commission flexibility?
Winnie Green, Deputy Chief Counsel. So as I was alluding to earlier, yes, if that's what the commission wants to do, it can get more specific than the language that is in there right now.
What about location? Meaning, and I know the answer to this, but just for the sake of the community understanding, we cannot be specific to any designated area within the county or the city. We need to keep that general, yes or no?
So I did more research on that. There are examples of cities that have said they were going to use it for downtown revitalization, say, and that has passed muster. So it could be used for some purpose like that. It would just be, can the governing body justify that as a public purpose? That's really all that is needed. And there are AG opinions that say that there would be great deference given to the legislative body's interpretation of their public purpose for those public funds. Because that's the best, that's the biggest test, is public funds must be used for public purposes.
Okay.
So you could, it would just be a matter of, if you want to limit it to that, that does not give the commission as much flexibility with that money. But
Okay.
you could be that specific.
Okay. Even if we were not that specific, I just want the commission board to be aware, it is important that there are certain areas that have been promised certain things over the years, particularly when it comes to any of the areas east of 635. Not saying that this is not for everybody, because it is, but should this pass, I just want the commission board to be aware that we need to be cognizant of, certain areas east of 635 that have needed some service. But we have the west that has, they want a park, and you've got the golf course as well. I'm not excluding any of that, just making it very clear that some of the public comment was concerned that some of our disenfranchised areas are kind of, put aside and not considered priority. So just want to throw that out there.
Correct. And again, in my research though, the legislative intent though was for specific, especially economic type boons, where if you're trying to revitalize an area, sometimes it's better to do, say, a CID,
Mm-hmm.
a commercial improvement.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's a good point. Could any proceeds legally be used for stadium-related roads, infrastructure, or other obligations?
I mean, yes, they could. Would the commission want to as part of the budget process? That's an entirely different story.
Okay.
If we were going to make those improvements on our own that had nothing to do with the stadium, yes, the funds could be used with that for those purposes. If it was infrastructure and it fell under the language of our ordinance, they could. But it's just a matter of, is that what the commission wants to do with those proceeds?
Thank you. And how much existing UG revenue is currently affected by economic development incentives? Abatements, star bonds, TIFs, or other mechanisms? Do we have that number? Not
I
really.
don't know that I do.
Could we I think the purpose of asking this is to make sure that we're just kind of covering all our bases.
I think Dr. Knieven is.
Dr. Knieven, you want to answer?
Shelley Knieven, CFO. So I don't have the numbers with me right now, but we are going to do a detailed presentation on August 31st,
Okay.
DNF committee, and so that would be an opportunity to get those specifics. I just didn't bring them tonight.
Okay, that's great. And I'm just gonna point out, based on what came out of standing committee, just so for other commissioners to understand, that there were 5 issues emerged out of public comment, and that was transparency and process. So let's just make sure that we define what a, be transparent and know what the process is, and make sure that our community understands what that is in making those decisions about how those funds are spent. The specificity and accountability, which we've already pretty much discussed. Of course, the northeast, south, the east, south, west, north, be cognizant of that and the investments that have been made. And the existing household tax burden. So Commissioner Kump, you did bring that. Some of our lower income families may have an issue with this sales tax. And then the stadium and development incentives was the other. So those were the 5 emerging real issues that came out of public comment that we need to be considerate of as you make your decision tonight. Thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor Pacheco, District 5. Wendy, in putting it on the ballot, would we have to put specific language if we wanted to try to offset some property taxes? Would that have to be on the ballot? Meaning that not that revenue that would come from this sales tax specifically would like go from that bucket to offset property taxes. But what I mean is that we could do our own accounting function essentially and say, if we brought in this much from sales tax, we have this less amount that we can't budget for. Does that have to be in the language on the ballot specifically? Or is that something that we could, if something were to pass, if the people were to vote for it, then we would talk about more specifics? Or does that need to be on the ballot on the front end?
So it's the latter what you were referring to. Okay, sorry, Wendy Green, Deputy Chief Counsel. So if the only reason you would put that specifically on the ballot is if you were using the proceeds of the sales tax to go directly to property tax relief. If it's not going directly to property tax relief, you were just going to be able to have the money from, say, the general fund or from other revenue sources to not have to spend that much money on parks or not have to spend that much money on infrastructure so that you could free up money for property tax relief. That's not being funded by the sales tax. So you would not put that language in the ballot.
Very good. Thank you.
It would not go in the ordinance or the resolution.
Okay, I appreciate that clarity. So,
Sure, I might just.
yes, please.
So as an example, on the public safety and infrastructure sales tax, the ballot language is pretty broad, and the ballot language itself doesn't speak to a third, a third, a third. But that was, in fact, how it was presented to the public, and how, that was the conversation, and that has been honored through the process and the appropriations process since it was implemented. So there's the ballot language, and then there's also here's what was presented to the public as how it would be used, and that has a lot of weight as well, outside of the ballot language or in addition to the ballot language.
Very good. Thank you. So with that said, I think this is an opportunity for us to really think about property tax relief as a commission, as including the mayor who's called for property tax relief. I think all of us have. All of us know that it's incredibly important. I think we could get to a position in which perhaps, we would say a certain percentage goes towards these things that we're saying it would go towards, and then the other part would just be offset in our budget process to say, hey, parks and public works, they got this extra spendable cash from this tax, but that means that this amount from the general fund or this particular decrease in the mill levy, whatever you want to do, dollar for dollar or percentage for percentage, just for a thought process here, gives us an opportunity to offset some of the burden, specifically to what Commissioner Kump was talking about, to decrease the property tax burden on our people. And what that also does is that basically makes it like a net zero, right? Or probably actually net positive per taxpayer. It's like, okay, you are paying, however, what do we say, 38 cents per $100 spent, which would equate to some amount of money per year. I would imagine maybe into the hundreds per year at the most. But because we're offsetting property taxes, it's actually a net wash for the taxpayer, but you get those things. You get the better roads, you get the better parks. So I think that's an opportunity for us in thinking about this, and I support putting it on the ballot because all this really means, what we need to figure out is what we want to actually put on the ballot, but I support putting something on the ballot to let the people decide if they want something like this or not. My second point is, I think, let me see, what is my second point? Okay. So the other aspect of this is, I hear completely the argument of this disproportionately affecting lower income people. I completely understand that logic. I agree with it. It makes mathematical sense. Here's the one thing that a lot of times we don't consider, though, is that for that, what's the trade-off for that person who pays proportionally more? Well, it may mean that that lower income household, who is more likely to use the parks that are free? People who are lower income. So even though it is proportionally more compared to somebody who has a higher income, it actually is something that maybe serves that person more. So we have to try to do the math, but what's more aggressive? Not providing things that are very low cost or free to people who that's all they may be able to afford from an entertainment standpoint. And I'm not trying to belittle at all, but I'm trying to just talk real sense here. That's also regressive too. Having less healthcare access is also regressive. Having worse roads in certain parts of the county where perhaps there's a higher amount of low-income people is regressive to that person as well. So that's the other side of the coin that we don't often think about. And so we have to try to make that decision for that person and say, is that worth it? Is that little bit more of a proportion for that particular household worth it? So that way the free services that we could provide or the better infrastructure that we could provide with this money makes more sense, in sense, like logical sense, and sense too, like dollar sense. And I think there's an opportunity for it to do that. So I do support putting this on the ballot. I would like to see us go more towards option A. I think exactly for that reason, infrastructure is incredibly important, exactly like Commissioner Ramirez said. I mean, without it, we're lost, right? But I do think that there is always something to be said for parks, recreation, community centers, things like that, that add value to the community. I'm a big believer in that, and that could be my own bias. And I don't know if there's a whole lot of data in that, but I just am convinced of the idea that we can serve the people who are already here better, number one, with these sorts of things. And number two, we can attract more people from the workforce into our community, which is what we always say we need. So I'd like to move towards option A. I'm not going to put a motion, want to hear whatever anybody else has to say. But I think there's just a couple things in my points that sometimes we don't always think about when we're talking about this problem. And I'd like the public to understand it from that point of view as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pacheco. Okay, so I think at this time, I either need a motion for option A. Oh, Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add some comments. So I would be for, definitely for the county sales tax. I do think, and I have a question for council, I'm so sorry, Commissioner Davis, District 8. Could we include unhoused somewhere in the ballot language. For example, when it says behavioral health or preventative health services, because the language is including but not limited to, I would prefer that we drive the point home that we are trying to provide more health care to folks, but we deeply understand, and one of the intentions is that we also are providing care to those that are unhoused. Is it possible for us to add that term somewhere within the ballot language?
Yeah, I think we could. I think we could already do that without adding it into the language, because I think any wraparound services you would have, say in a cold weather shelter, in an unhoused shelter, would already be in the language of the ordinance. I think it's already considered in the language of the statute. So I don't know that we have to be able to do that. But I think we could if that was what you all wanted.
Yeah, the only reason why I say that is because I think some folks are confused on how this special countywide sales tax would assist or help with our unsheltered population. And so I wanted to be clear that, you know, somebody that hasn't been in all these meetings and doesn't have context can see that the desire is that care be prioritized but not limited to our unhoused population as it pertains to healthcare services. You see what I'm saying?
Right. I do. The only caution I would give is if you do say that specifically, then you're limiting your ability to use it for the entire county population for healthcare services. So, I mean, you can have that be the intent from the commission, is that's what you're intending to use the majority of the sales tax for. And you can absolutely direct that through your policy considerations through the budget. But if you specifically say that in the ordinance and in the ballot language, then you can only use it for that.
Yeah.
So
That's not necessarily what I'm saying. What I'm
Right,
saying
but
is to
it'd
be,
be my only caution.
sure, sure. I'm just trying to be all inclusive, but also name out something specific
Mhm.
that anyone that doesn't have a lot of context
Mhm.
watching our meetings can say, oh, okay, this will help those folks that are unhoused, while also not excluding the other services and the rest of our population. So that's my point in bringing that up on the county side. On the special purpose city sales tax, I'm absolutely for it. I've been for it. I think this is our third time, which we've tried. And so this is the farthest we've got since I've been elected. But I think that we are tapped as a community on how much we want to rely on property taxes. However, we have not had viable options such as this one operating, not a grant, operating revenue that can change the formula and change the revenue structure. So I am for option A. I will say, I know within this language, it does not delineate a percentage of who gets what between parks and public works. I would prefer a 50-50 split, not I think it's a third and then 2/3 split for parks. I think for both departments, we need to make sure that there are resources available for them to use this revenue so that our community can see it. I do have a question for our Public Works Department. I did not see sidewalks listed in the kind of proposed, and I know again, it's just proposed projects. Is there a reason why sidewalks weren't listed?
We could do sidewalks. It's just currently not a program that we have in the city. So as a public works department, we'd be glad to do whatever you want to put the emphasis on, but our recommendation is always going to be maintain what we have to start with before we add new programs. Yes, we need sidewalks. I'd love to build sidewalks for all the community. You give us $160 million, we'll put in a lot of sidewalks, which will honestly turn into stormwater projects with sidewalks on top of them, because that's what happens when you build sidewalks over ditches. But that's just why it wasn't there, because it's not a current program we have. So that answers your question.
Sure.
Obviously do it. It's it's to the budget process. If this gets approved and it goes to the budget process and that's where you want the money spent, that's what we'll build.
Absolutely. I mean, I would, again, if there's a 50-50 split, 8 million, 8 million, I would like to see there be a dedicated, whether it's $1 million a year, $2 million a year dedicated for building out sidewalks. We have major corridors. I'm just thinking of my district between Leavenworth Road, Perillo, and State, but we have not connected our neighborhoods to those major corridors to increase walkability. And we know, because again, we're talking about health, walkability is a big indicator of the health of your city. And so I would love for us to make those investments and for there to be a 50-50 split between you all, just my perspective.
I'll note real quick on that. My recommendation, if you want to do that, all for it.
Yeah.
Commit what you need to do it the right way.
Yeah.
Not just a couple, $1 million isn't going to get you very far in
Sure.
sidewalks. So commit what you need to do it the right way. That would be my only recommendation.
I hear you. And I think, again, if this does pass, we can talk strategy of
Right.
what it looks like to transform neighborhoods and transform areas, right, time by time by time and year by year by year. Last thing I will say is in Midtown, when it comes to our parks needs, we only have 3 parks in my district, but I already pretty much memorized, right, what all of them need, or at least what the top needs are, because our Parks Department has done a phenomenal job of capturing those needs. So for Eisenhower, of course, we need a new track, we need a new football field, we need a new baseball field, and of course, we can always use a new community room, if I'm being quite honest. For Wellborn, we have an overgrown baseball field that can be activated, dilapidated tennis court, a futsal court that unfortunately, because of the storm, needs repairs. And so there's opportunity there. And then at Thompson, I think we need a bathroom. We need bathrooms at a lot of our parks. That hasn't come up a lot, as well as a new playground. And so we know that there are other areas of town that actually want a community center, right? And so there's some real tangible wins here that I don't want us to lose sight of that will impact areas, yes, east of 635, but also west of 635 in my district. Thank you, Mayor.
And I just want to add to that too, and I think that it's important to note that in the parks, we actually fund and maintain things like our roads and our lighting. We have several light poles go down with this recent storm. We have a lot of old light poles. Pearson Park alone has 50+ light poles. So I think, when we talk about infrastructure needs, just keeping in mind that, our department also maintains those things in our parks as well. So thank you.
And I just had one more thing. It was mentioned at AHS, Director Ferreira, can you tell us how underfunded our Parks Department is, in part because of the remnants of the housing crisis and the Great Recession? How much behind are we in funding because of the decisions that were made by prior commissions to cut?
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit. I think 2008, 2013, we kind of give the example of the recreation budget. That got cut $500,000 to $1 million alone just for programming. I know we've given the NRPA metrics on a department our size and a population our size for our county at 160,000. And so annual on median, what that funding level should be anywhere from like 5 to 8 million annually, just for our needs. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
One thing I haven't heard about, and maybe you can clarify this or verify for me, Angel. Is it true that we have 25 abandoned cemeteries that are now under the care of Parks and Recreation?
Yes, Mayor, that is correct. The cemeteries fall under Parks and Recreation. She's been here for a couple years now, but Director Amanda Hammond at the museum, 2 years ago before she came on, we thought we had 14. She's identified several more. So it is about 20 cemeteries.
But we don't have a budget to maintain the integrity of those who have passed and are buried in our cemeteries?
That would be a correct statement. We do have a limited budget for mowing, and we're only meeting just the requirements for the state statute for that, for mowing. So when you think of the cemeteries and the tree work that needs to be done and the fence work that needs to be done, and, headstones are shifting. We've got graves that are sinking in. Our team actually goes out there when we can. and try to reset those headstones, or the museum will work with families to help find headstones, and that does become challenging over time. So it is a shoestring budget is probably generous when it comes to the cemeteries, but we have very limited budget to maintain that operation.
And you might just add, the Abandoned Cemeteries Act, the Kansas Abandoned Cemeteries Act is what drives that. And so that's one where the state statute then turns that responsibility over to local governments, does not provide any funding to provide or support those cemeteries, but it is required under state law that we take responsibility for those abandoned cemeteries.
And we are unique in the state of Kansas, and honestly, I think across the nation after Ms. Hammond's research. Municipalities in the state of Kansas maybe have 3 or less cemeteries, and we have at least 20, so it's very unusual.
Well, that's a concern because we're planning funding for all this other stuff, but we don't even have enough funds to have dignity for those who we've lost. And that's a tragedy to me. But we'll move on. Commissioner Howard.
Howard, District 1. I appreciate the conversations tonight, but I want to go to the low income comment that was made earlier. While I'm very much aware of the impact of the sales tax on low income, what I want to say is that I want to change the narrative about low income in those areas that are disinvested. Oftentimes we identify the areas that are disinvested in, but we don't look at it as an investment. And so in order to change that narrative where we can get level the playing field, if you will, on the economic side of it, the only way to do that is by investing. And so when I look at these options, yeah, I'm aware that the community that will be most impacted by it will be low income families. But I also understand that by investing with this sales tax, it will change the narrative in those communities, and they will start to see the infrastructure improved, parks improved, roads, schools will start to be improved. A lot of the times, we forget that our community sometimes is not aware of true investment, what investment really looks like. And so I think this is a good example of investing in our community, whether they understand it or not. We're aware of the impact on both sides. But nevertheless, we have an opportunity to invest in our community. And we also have an opportunity to generate some more revenue besides forcing people to pay taxes. And so I'm in favor of option A.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. All right, so with that said, if there are no other questions, I guess I need a motion for for the resolution for special purpose countywide sales tax. That is a 1/4% to finance the cost of providing healthcare services as allowed under Kansas law.
Mayor Bynum, so move.
Davis, second.
It has been moved by Bynum and second by Davis. Roll call, please.
Roll call: Burns,
No.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Pacheco,
Aye.
Stites,
No.
Davis,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Kump,
No.
Howard.
Aye.
Vote is 6-3, the motion carries.
Thank you, clerk. Thank you, commissioners. All right, the second is an ordinance for special purpose city sales tax. I'm going to go with a motion for option.
Bynum, move to place this special purpose city sales tax option A on the ballot for November.
Davis, second.
It's been moved, excuse me. It's been moved by Bynum.
Oh, sorry, Mayor. Can I ask a question to Commissioner Bynum real quick?
Yes.
So sorry, Commissioner Bynum. And I don't know, colleagues, does it matter about the percentage of who gets what between Public Works and Parks, or should it just be a flat, let the budget take care of it?
I was not including a split in the motion that I made, but I'm
It's just a 3/8 cent.
open to that conversation.
Yeah, the tax is 3/8 cents, but the revenue itself, when it's delivered, there's a question of should we include in the language, this department gets this percentage?
Go ahead.
I don't think so.
I wanted to refer back
I don't know.
to what you said earlier because we didn't include in the current public safety and infrastructure, we didn't include the language a third, a third, a third, but we have honored it. Is that what you said?
There was, I think, legislative intent in putting that onto the ballot. So I think it would be, I would say it would be helpful clarification for staff, as we develop budgets. And I think also for communicating this to the public, what they can expect to get that from those, so that those expectations are realistic, so that, we're not double promising in a sense what can be done with the same number of dollars.
Can that still be defined though after, so we know what the amount of funding is, but we can build in either a separate ordinance or just at least have a policy and how, so we can be more specific instead of it being actually on the ballot itself?
Yes. I mean, so it doesn't necessarily need to be in the ballot language, but if there's clarity from the body as to what the
Yeah.
intent is, then I think that's sufficient.
Somebody have something to say?
I mean, I don't know if Commissioner, I don't know if that changes anything for your motion.
Does not.
Okay, I'll second it.
So it's been moved by Bynum.
Legal counsel wants to make a comment.
Legal?
I want to clarify that that is also adopting the ordinance that places that on the ballot.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes. The ordinance
Thank
for
you.
special purpose city sales tax, option A, 3/8 of 1 cent for the purposes of financing park capital improvements projects, including parks, community centers, and trails, and infrastructure projects such as roads, bridges, and sidewalks.
Thank you.
Noting that that does include parks, includes everything, aquatics, everything. Okay? It has been moved by Commissioner Bynum and second by Commissioner Davis for option A. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Burns,
No.
Ramirez,
No.
Hill,
Aye.
Pacheco,
Aye.
Stites,
No.
Davis,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Kump,
No.
Howard.
No.
The vote is 4-5. The motion fails.
Okay. So option B, 3/8 of 1 cent for the purposes of financing park capital improvement projects, including parks, community centers, and trails. Can I get a motion? Commissioner Davis.
I just asked to my colleagues that voted no for option A, was the reasoning, if you care to share, was the reasoning because there wasn't specificity of the allocation, or are we saying we do not want to fund public works in that sales tax ballot? I know there's some folks that just do not want this to go on the ballot at all, but I'm just curious. Just a question.
I mean, I'll speak on it. I said no because we had the specification of whether we could divvy it up or not. So I just,
Would you prefer an option A with a specificity?
I mean, yeah,
We can make a motion for that.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, both great departments, but I think, again, if this were to pass, this is an opportunity for us to move the needle. And I think that needle is our infrastructure. We sat on special committees with our Public Works Department to come up with a strategies and outcome of our infrastructure. And that's why I had voted no on A, because I do think we need to hone in on the infrastructure and be able to provide those services to our community.
Commissioner Howard?
Howard District 1, Commissioner Ramirez, I have a question for you. When you talk about infrastructure, does that not include parks as well as infrastructure?
Well, our parks are infrastructure. I'm more what they were referring to is helping maintain what we already have. We have, as it's been said by Public Works, we have more lane miles than we should in the size of our community. And so that is part of the backlog of the infrastructure projects. And so my district, we would love sidewalks. I hear that all the time of wanting more sidewalks in the community. But as Troy said, we should maintain what we already have before we start new programs. And I just think that we need to fix our streets, our pavements, our bridges. Those are important to keep our community mobile and connected together.
Thank you. So I'm just in favor of if we are deciding to do option A, of course, my only thing is how much do they get to divvy up?
We can decide that at a later time.
Okay.
We can come up with a process and how that will be distributed.
My thing is, I just wanted to make sure we walked away knowing that that would be the conversation of how we
Yes.
divvy it up.
Mayor, I'm sorry. I'm not understanding.
So Commissioner Davis wanted to put in the ordinance that we divvy up,
Right.
correct? That's it, that's
So
all.
what's the percentage that you want to?
Yeah, Commissioner Dave Sixer-Gate. So I mean, the motion I could make is we adopt option A,
Mm-hmm.
we adopt the ordinance, but specify that the 3/8 sales tax for 1% will be split 50% of the revenue for the parks and then 50% for the infrastructure.
Okay. So make.
That Howard second.
Okay, that will be my motion then.
Okay, so Commissioner Davis made the yes, Wendy.
No, I just want
Attorney.
clarification. Do you want that as the policy considerations for how the revenue will be spent and not in the ballot language itself? Or do you want that in the ballot language itself?
The motion was that it's in the ballot.
In the ballot language? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
All right, so the resolutions for a special purpose, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hill.
Thank you. I just need to understand the motion. Just go through and help me understand where are we at again? So-
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's the same motion, option A, same thing. The only difference, and it's what Commissioner Howard and what I alluded to, was that the revenue that's generated is split between infrastructure and parks. It's the same motion, same ordinance. It's just specifying where the revenue goes. So it's still a 3/8 sales tax, but the revenue is split 50-50 between those two categories.
So for example, the language that could be is 3/8 of 1% split 50-50 for the purpose, no, 3/8 of 1% for the purposes of financing park capital improvement projects, which includes parks, community centers, and trails at 50%, and infrastructure projects such as roads, bridges, and sidewalks at 50%. Something similar to that. Motion by Davis, second by Howard. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Burns.
No.
Ramirez.
No.
Hill.
Aye.
Pacheco.
Aye.
Stites.
No.
Davis,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Kump,
No.
Howard.
Aye.
Vote is 5-4, Mayor.
5-4?
Your vote.
Aye.
The vote is 6-4. The motion carries.
Trying to think where we at next. Okay. The last item, 11.2, is the scheduling of a budget workshop to address several of the requests and information for this body has made during the current budget process. I will turn the matter over to our interim county administrator, Mr. Alan Howes, for opening remarks.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'll let the budget team get situated here.
We can pull it. We'll get it.
Clerk, can we just take 5 minutes to regroup?
Absolutely.
Thank you. We'll take 5 minutes. Too hot. Yeah, you can take it. Alan got too hot. Me and Melissa are fine over here. Are we ready? Okay, we're going to resume the meeting. Thank you all for your patience again. All right, we are now at the budget. I will turn the matter over to our interim county administrator, Mr. Allen House, for opening remarks.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So we will pick up here on our next budget workshop. Last week, as you all know, we had 4 budget workshops by standing committee and the opportunity to dig into different department budgets during those workshops. So what we're doing tonight, and you'll hear from our budget director, Reginald Lindsay, in just a second, is bringing back information, some of the questions that we saw from that workshop, as well as some of the questions around what is moving in the budget, what is causing the directional movement in the budget. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lindsay for tonight's presentation and discussion.
Thank you, Interim County Administrator House. Tonight I have joining me Deputy Budget Director Michael Peterson and also our CFO, Dr. Shelley Knieven. So what we're going to do to cover tonight, we're going to cover a few different things. Michael is going to go through our new improved budget document that is electronic. It is ADA accessible. Also, it has a lot of new transparency tools. Also, we're going to have a primer on the 2027 budget, just kind of talk about the large numbers on the budget that you all would be approving. Also, there were 2 memos that went out. One related to budget actions and follow-ups. Dr. Shelley Knieven is going to go over that. And then Michael sent out a detailed budget information that included incremental increases for the 2027 proposed budget. Then departments that had spent over more than 4%, he's going to go over that. Then he also talk about what departments need to operate as far as that they don't have in their budget right now. And then we'll kind of end on kind of what our goals are next week as far as we have two budget meetings next week. So we'll talk about that also. I'll turn it over to our Deputy Budget Director, Michael Peterson.
So Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director. I'm just going to go over some of the resources that are available. Typically, when we've done budget presentations before, there's been a segment of a workshop that's been dedicated to the budget document itself. I'm going to start from the UG website just so that other people might be able to follow along. But if you go to the UG website and you just go to departments, budget is an option there. If you go to the budget site, the first thing that should show up in a blue banner is 2027 budget information. So if you open that, there's 2 links. The top one is the budget book. It takes you directly to our online budget book. I'm going to start with the second one. It's the budget resource portal, because there are several new things this year that haven't been available previously, or at least not in the same way. So this is a site that we have through our budgeting tool. It allows us to upload visualizations for drillable access to the budget. So there's several things I wanted to show. So for 2027, somebody wanted to click, they could just select 2027 and it would give you the 2027 budget information. So there's a Revenue Explorer. So if you go here, it's drillable by city or county revenues. You can go in, you can drill down by the fund type. to an individual fund, such as an enterprise fund, it'll tell you the different enterprise funds. You can figure out what percentage of that fund type is made up of each fund, and then go down into the individual budget line. So this is every budget line that we budget for revenues in here, and it'll break down 27 proposed, 26 amended, as well as the 25 actuals and the 24 actuals for those specific lines. So that's an option. There's also an Explorer for expenditures. It does the same thing. So we have multiple options here. You can explore it by cost type, which basically takes you through our ledgers. You can do it through functional area, which takes it basically public safety infrastructure. So for instance, for public safety, I could go into the fire department. I could see the fire divisions, so fire suppression, EMS, fire administration, and then I could go into their cost centers, whatever programs they have, and then all the way down to the spend category, which is the lowest level that we budget at for each cost center. So that's available. And then I also wanted to show, we've been asked for line item detail before. There's a line item detail explorer. I will just mention that this is the certified funds. I know it's come up that we're not showing grant or non-certified funds as much. The fact is, those are estimated in our budget book, but those are estimates. Those are not things that are getting approved. A lot of times we don't even know what we're going to be awarded for those grants until after we go through the budget process. So that's the reason why we don't put them in as fixed dollar amounts. They're mostly estimates for public communication. But in here, these are basically the work tags that we use to budget by. We have the departments, divisions, cost centers, programs, whether it's a revenue or expense, the fund, as well as grants, projects. So if a grant is matched with general fund dollars, it should show up here. Ledger, revenue, spend category, and then history, as well as 26 amended, 27 proposed budget. So that's available. And then back on the main site, either through our budget document or on our portal itself, we have the budget document itself. Again, this is new this year. It's not a PDF document, it's an online document. So just some highlights. County administrator's message has an overview of the budget and kind of what's behind it. There's a lot of functionality within that we've tried to add some clickable options. For instance, you can see it's 419.6 million on the city side. You can break that down into what the funding types are and then what the different funds are that make up those funding types throughout. We have community profile, basically statistics on the community as part of the document. An overview of the budget calendar, just how the budget process works. Within the financial summary, there's overviews of the financials. So we have department funding sources, which departments are broken down by city and county funds and what percentage of those departments are city or county supported. We have individual fund statements for each of our funds. So this would be an example of a fund statement for the city general fund, to where we compare it to the prior 2 years actuals, the 2026 original budget, and the amended and the proposed. Going down further.
Does it explain the type descriptions?
You mean the different types of
Mhm.
revenues and expenses?
Mm-hmm. So like commodities. Does it explain what that is?
There is a glossary in the budget overview. I'm going to be honest, it's been a minute since I've personally read through the glossary. So I
Well,
would
I'm
have to
just
look.
impressed so far what you have done because this is it shows a lot more transparency than what we've shown before. So I'm very impressed with that. So you can figure it out later if you can't find it now.
Yeah. And then within each section, so the budget is broken out into sections. So general government, public safety. So just an example of community services. If I go through judicial services, community services, within each of these sections, there's a diagram showing what percentage of the budget that section is. So community services is 11% of the budget. And then down further, we have a breakdown of all the different departments that make up community services that's drillable, just like the same format before, as well as department or division pages for each department with department narratives. So kind of what their operations overview is, any important issues, highlights, new initiatives, and then their expenditures, FTEs, expenditure by fund, expenditure by division. And then just going to the very end, we have the different capital schedules for the capital identified needs going out 5 years for cash projects, equipment, and debt, grant inventory, position FD summaries that show where our different positions are in the budget. So the FTEs, you can see that the majority of our FTEs are public safety. It breaks it down by the different departments and then what the funding source is for those FTEs, as well as cost. So these are the dollars for the personnel and what the spend categories are for personnel. And then FTE by department, which shows the different classifications that each department has within their budget of job titles and the changes between the 24-5 amended 26 budget and then the 26 amended 27 proposed. Same by fund, employee benefits, which we brought up during one of the standing committee meetings. And then just links to our overall financial policies across the UG. So just something that we wanted to make sure that people knew was available
Michael,
as we go through this process.
dedicated sales tax, since we just got through talking about sales tax, to show how it's split out, the third for police department, fire department infrastructure, so they can get an idea of what a future sales tax could look like in the budget document.
Yeah, so one of the things that we typically do when we go through this is we show a distribution of the dedicated sales tax. So this is how the dedicated sales tax is budgeted between public safety and infrastructure, with a third going to fire, a third going to police, and a third going to public works, with some parks involved as well. And then a breakdown of where those costs are by department. And then I will say that we just added tourism fund due to the resolution that was passed on the tourism fund. So how much is public Parks and Rec capital, how much is KCK Convention and Visitors Bureau, and how much is other tourism related expenses? Any questions on that part of our presentation?
Commissioner Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor Pacheco, District 5. I just want to make a quick comment. Number one, I'd like to comment publicly that this is tremendous information. I think this is exactly the level of detail that so many citizens in the short time that I've been an elected official have asked for. And I can also say that I'm not afraid to say it. I've spent a few nights nerding out on it because it's pretty cool information. And it actually gives you a very detailed idea of what the budget is, the realities of the budget, the expenses, and all those things. And in my nerding out, the one thing that I noticed, I don't know if there's something that we could find a way to program it in there, but when we look at some of these pie charts, I'd like to somehow highlight the ones that are mandated by the state in which we get $0. Because I think it would be very good for people to know if there are any people out in our community who would nerd out, at 10 o'clock at night like me looking at something like this, oh, yep, that's one thing that the county has to provide that they get zero money for. And at minimum, it helps people understand the realities of the budget. The final comment I'll make is the one thing that I hear often is, we need to find cuts and efficiencies and things like that. I think this at least allows us as commissioners, as well as the community to then, okay, let's find them. Maybe they're there and I'm willing to listen to them, but now here it is, here they are. And what are the things that would be proposed? And it at least allows us to take a full view of the budget with all of the realities, all the things that are unfunded that we have to provide, the changes over the last few years because of inflation and things like that. And a lot of times you will actually see that the FTEs don't change, but the costs do. And that has to do with just the rising cost of employing somebody. So all that to say that I think this is a tremendous resource for the community. I've posted it already publicly on my social media page because I know there's enough people out there who care enough about the details. So thank you so much for presenting it.
Commissioner Stites.
I'll echo what Commissioner Pacheco just said. Very much like what I've seen in this. That's what I've been asking for quite some time. And I'm really glad that we've got to that point and to that level of detail where you can spend some time. There might have been some time that I didn't do it at nighttime, like Commissioner Pacheco, but maybe on my regular day job, I might have spent, don't tell my boss that, but no, but I've spent quite a bit of time looking at the, I really am impressed by it. Thank you very much for that level of work detail.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Bynum, I think your ask is about to come true. Because every budget cycle, since I've been here, you've asked for us to go line item by line item. And now we have a function to do that. And so I love this, the way we're doing the budget book now. Because it is, you know, all of us have our old budget books and they're thick books, hard to read, hard to find information. This, we can know exactly where to go, drill down deeper into the numbers. And I think that's going to be a big plus for us as we go through our budget negotiations with each other and try to find ways to find cost savings, make sure we're not overtaxing our community. Maybe we can work together to go through the different line items. I'm down for it now that we have an actual budget document that can allow us to do that. And not now that it's not so onerous on staff to do the part. Now we as the commissioners, we can do that part now. Thank you.
Continue with the presentation. Oh, Commissioner Kump.
Thank you, Mayor. Come to at large. Just wanted to kind of also sing my praises. This is a level of transparency that our taxpayers deserve. That's the question we get most often, I think, is where does the money go? Now they can see line by line where the money goes. So I want to commend you. That's, I mean, from what it was to what it is, incredible. I am so thrilled that this is available to the public. It's going to be helpful for all of us. But more importantly, it's that transparency that the mayor and this commission has talked about, allowing the public to see behind the curtain in a way that is easy to understand. I've said this, I think I said it on Monday during our committee meeting. There's a difference between being technically transparent, as in, yeah, it's somewhere online, and being easily digestible for the average person. That is easily digestible. So giving you your flowers, incredible. I'm very excited. Thank you.
Thank you all. Let's just give him a big old hand clap right now. Woo, woo, woo. Let's go, budget. Let's go. All right. Continue. Commissioner Howard? No? Okay.
And for those that don't know, Michael Peterson is like the data king of the organization. He gets into all kind of data and loves digging through it. So he was the perfect person to help implement that. So what I'm going to do now is just give a brief overview of the budget that was proposed back on Thursday, August 6th. So we proposed a budget of $551 million that is balanced on both the expense and the revenue side. It funds.
We have a question. Commissioner Bynum?
Reggie, at the very bottom, what does it mean? Revenues and expenditures include 13.8 million. Star bond annual appropriation 2027 is final year of allocation. What does that mean?
Shelley Knieven, CFO. So when we did the racetrack star bonds so long ago, there was an annual appropriations clause in the bond documents.
Oh, I
The star
apologize.
bonds actually generate plenty of money to repay the bonds. It goes into a special fund, but we're required to show it. And so we just want to disclose that, but we're glad that that's actually going to retire. And
No, I appreciate it. It was the opposite of what I was thinking. So thank you very much.
As part of this 2027 budget, we have 32 funds. We have one additional proposed fund this year, and that is a sci-fi fund. Last year, we had 30, or in this current budget, we have 31 funds, and we added the sci-fi fund. So just kind of see personnel is like 50 cents of every dollar spent in the expense budget. So the next fund we're looking at right now is the City General Fund. It's a $205 million budget. We can see personnel is almost 75 cents of every dollar spent on the City General Fund. So the City General Fund is where a lot of our services get delivered. So we have police, fire, public works, transit. A lot of the operations are funded out of here as City General Fund. To give you an example of what the budget is for 2026, it was $92 million. So it's up about 6.7%, which is $13 million. County General Fund is a $103 million budget. Almost 70 cents of each dollar spent here is for personnel. It's up about $9 million. 2026 budget is a $94 million budget, so that's up 9%. And this is where we fund a lot of our constitutional offices, such as the Sheriff's Department, District Attorney, District Courts, and the Register of Deeds. So we've kind of talked about what this year's budget is, but just wanted to also give you all a view of the budget that we propose, what it would look like in 2 to 5 years. So here in the City General Fund, it does include an additional mill that allow us to make some investments and also stabilize the fund balance. So we can see for the 2027 budget, we do have a fund balance of almost 21%. We're adding about $78,000 to the fund balance. But as you look out into the future years, the budget, there are deficits as far as we're spending more on expenditures than we have revenues coming in. So we can see in 2028, we're forecast to spend about $1.9 million in the fund balance. And as we go into 2029, 3.8 million, and then 2030, 5.1 million, and then in 2031, 6.4 million. So this is a view of the County General Fund. County General Fund, we definitely have lower fund balance here. One of our policies as an organization is to keep a 25% fund balance. We can see in the city, we almost, with the proposed budget, had a 21% fund balance for the 2027 proposed budget. We're here in the county, we have about almost a 5.5% fund balance, but we do have a structurally balanced budget in 2027. And we are all, with this proposed budget, we are almost doubling our fund balance percentage from the 2026 budget. But one of the things we look out into the future is that the deficits, they do grow. They're not as large as in the City General Fund, but it's not as large fund. So like in 2028, looking at $127,000 negative spending into our fund balance. And then to 2031, it does grow to about $1 million.
Reggie, we have a question by Commissioner Comp.
Thank you, Mayor. Come to at large. Does the 2027 county proposed budget include the increased full mill as well?
So it includes a half a mil, and there's another half a mil that is put into sci-fi.
Okay, thank you.
So now I'll turn it over to Dr. Shelley Knieven. She's going to cover a memo that was passed out to you all regarding some of the budget actions we've taken and then also follow-ups.
Thank you, Reggie. So a couple things. Through the committee process where the departments each presented, we kept notes. And I supported the efforts of the budget team in putting together a summary memo that was distributed to you. So a couple of key points, key questions that were asked. Sunflower Hills Golf Course, we do have included in the budget replacement of the golf course management to be brought in-house. And after 6 months, we will evaluate what the net revenues are that we've projected to make sure that we're comfortable bringing back a proposal to you all to issue debt so that the golf course repays that debt in full. So we just wanted to follow up on kind of the sequencing of it's the operations comes in-house January 1, and then we'll follow up with you after July with the debt plan. Animal services veterinarian was the second topic that came up several times. The police department had proposed hiring an in-house full-time vet in lieu of continuing contact services. And so it doesn't really require a net change to the bottom line of the budget, but we will advertise that position. And assuming we're able to hire, then we'll move the money from the contracted services where they currently are to the personnel and bring that in-house, which will give animal services 40 hours of vet services in-house. And then over time, they'll further develop their plan of how we can expand some low-cost services to the community. But for the onset, it'll be focused on serving the dogs and cats that are in the shelter. Safer.
But you will hire in 2027.
Yes, we are hoping to actually advertise within the next month or so.
Okay, great.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Is that because of okay, hold on. That doesn't have anything to do with the amended budget, right?
It doesn't require, we can do it through a transfer. So it doesn't require the whole budget to be amended. And so we'll be able to do that because it's within the departmental budget in total.
Okay.
So we won't have to do that because we're taking the money that we'll be currently using for contracted services
We're hiding
and just
behind.
moving it.
Okay,
That's right.
got it. Thank you.
Okay. Safer Fire Department grant, we provided a number of options, and just to put a finer point on it to clarify what's included in the proposed budget is the Safer grant, as you know, ends, and that was 17 positions. And we're proposing funding 12 of those positions and a amount that would also then be done for capital in the amount of 180,000. And then we're going to request an extension of the grant funding because we haven't used it all through the period, and that should help get us through the end of the year if it's approved. And then we would hold on the vacant positions if it's not approved, so that we aren't actually removing any positions, and then that'll come back as part of the 28 budget. The CAPS grant, for clarification, as you know, that stair steps down over a 3-year period. And we have put into the proposed budget that we will absorb those people, the actual people, through vacancies. But to highlight just in full disclosure, that does mean there's a net reduction in FTEs because as there's a vacancy, we move the human person over, but then there's a net reduction because we don't have that grant anymore. So that's what's included in the proposed budget. There was, yes,
Question.
ma'am.
So why are we doing that for COS, but we're not doing that for the Safer? Why are we extending it? Why are we asking for an extension for them, but the police grant,
I understand.
we're just gonna let it run out?
So with the Safer grant, we had approved funds from FEMA that haven't been used. But with the COPS grant, we used all those funds. And so there's no funds to request an extension. The only reason why we're asking for an extension from FEMA is that they pretend, just for discussion's sake, they approved $100, but we've only used 90, or we project to only use 90. Well, we want to keep that extra $10 to the UG, so that's why we're requesting that extension. I'm sorry, that wasn't real clear when I originally said that.
Okay, but
So I might add one thing, Shelley.
Please.
Also, it's because of contractual agreements also.
oh, okay. But this is my question. So we got a SAFE grant to get it. When the SAFE grant is expended, then how are we gonna budget for these additional positions? Because do we have the money now to cover that? If we didn't have the SAFE grant, could we cover those positions right now?
In the proposed 27 budget, we have funded 12 of the 17. And so for the additional 5 through attrition, we're hoping that we'll be able to move those people over.
So Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director, I did have a slide prepared for SAFER. I was going to go on this in more detail and then
We can wait then.
and then I can hand it back to Shelley, or we could wait either way.
No, let's wait till we get to your slide.
Okay.
Keep it moving.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, the Neighborhood Resource Center staffing was also a question that was raised, and whether or not we could fund additional personnel through fees. The way that that works, we provided you with some data on what the revenue has been, and we're doing the cost comparison with what the costs are for the personnel we currently have. But it's really driven by the number of applications that you have, not by the number of FTEs that you have. FTEs, though, certainly address some of our customer service issues. And so we did highlight a few other things we're doing through the use of technology to improve customer service. But right now, we don't have additional resources in the proposed budget. Jailing costs for municipal offenders, there was discussion about should that be moved from the police department to municipal court. And while there's an understanding that there's a portion of the municipal court offenders that are post-conviction that are being housed, there's also pre-trial offenders. And we did check with other cities, and it's very common for it to be in the police department. So at least for the 27 budget, we have not moved that to the municipal court budget, but certainly could provide some reporting and that type of thing for good transparency so that we understand, that the police department really isn't in total control of that. Reestablishing a commissioner liaison role right now. This is not included in the proposed budget, but we understood and heard the need. So we're brainstorming about how we can better support the commission. We've retitled the homeless coordinator to the unhoused coordinator based on feedback that we got. And then finally, exploring staffing for livable neighborhoods is something that was raised. And of course, we're looking at ways that we might be able to do that. One note, and you'll see this in some of the documents that were provided in the packet, is that we are moving the neighborhood, the livable neighborhoods from the NRC over to community development to more align with one of their main funding sources, which is from community development. So you'll see in some of these handouts that there was a large increase in community development, which is simply then there'd be a decrease in the neighborhood resource center. And that's just a transfer because we felt it was a better alignment to support that work. And then I'll stop there. There's a bunch of other topics that were raised at different committees, asking for follow-up discussions and presentations, and those are on the list. And if we missed any, let us know.
Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. Just on that last item, when we say moving livable neighborhoods from neighborhood resource center to community development, do we mean budgetarily? Physically, they would stay at the NRC? Alan?
We do mean budgetarily, and we'll be working with the departments on kind of the structure of that and the staffing of it.
And so do we mean that, I understand that we dedicate a very small amount of funding annually out of community development to livable neighborhoods. But are we exploring spending additional community development dollars on livable neighborhoods?
We are.
Okay, and the only reason I bring it up is because back in the day, back in the olden days, it was largely funded, as were the NBRs, through community development, and HUD funding, as everyone knows, has a myriad of constraints and a large reporting requirement. And so I wasn't here. This was done long before I got here, but I was active with the NBRs, so I was aware of the actions that were being taken. And we specifically moved NBR funding and livable neighborhoods funding away from community development to get away from all those constraints. And so I find it curious if there's funding available for HUD-funded activities that they do and nobody's concerned about the constraints or the reporting requirements, then I'm good. It's interesting that it lived there 20 years ago. We deliberately moved it on purpose. And now we're talking about kind of going back in that direction. That's all. It's just a comment.
Commissioner, it is the general fund money
Okay.
that will move with them. So
Okay.
it's not intended to replace that money, but it's just a better alignment with the mission and the focus of the departments.
And I thought I heard Alan say we are contemplating using some level of community development funds for,
Yeah, that's something that's being looked at, and part of that is the sort of staffing.
Okay.
And so what is the mechanism? We're down to a single FTE in livable
right,
neighborhoods.
right.
So
Okay.
be part of that transition.
Thanks.
Oh, Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think Commissioner Howard had his hand raised too.
Sorry, Commissioner Howard.
I wanted to clarify, because this was something we did discuss at committee, where it says reestablished a commission liaison. It wasn't, I was just using the commission liaison as an example. The position I was referring to, and it states in the rules of procedure, for every standing committee, there's supposed to be a staff coordinator to work with the chairs of that committee to help coordinate the agenda, the workflow of the committee. And I know that from discussions with the clerk's office, that position has been part of their budget request, but has not been funded. And it's not funded in this year. And that was one of the things that I brought up that I would like to have been funded. So I just wanted to clarify that that's a staff coordinator in the clerk's office, not a commission liaison. I was just using our former commission liaison, Ally, as an example of someone that was truly, truly beneficial to the commission. And I think a staff coordinator for the standing committees to help the workflow of the legislative process for each chair would be amazing, or even just one. But again, it's going back to the premise of it's written in our rules of procedure, but we're not following the rules of procedure. And so that's where I had brought up that point during committee.
And I'll just, so we went back kind of into the Wayback Machine on this one, and Ms. Lawson has some of the history on this as well.
Yes, originally when we unified, and I was here, which I don't want to admit, but that position for for each standing committee, the initial thought with those would be that would be sort of a stepping stone or a way for people who wanted to move up in the organization. Staff could apply and be assigned to a standing committee and take over that coordinator role in addition to their regular job duties. I don't think it was very successful implemented that way because it was taking on a new role without any adjustment in salary or reduction in their regular roles. But initially when we unified, that was the intent of that section.
Oh, and I appreciate that, having that background knowledge. I'm still of the mind that we should fund it in some way. Our clerk's office is, as she has said, is the beating heart of our organization. Small but mighty, and that her office handles a lot of responsibilities. And I think being able to have one person just dedicated to standing committees within her department to offload a lot of the other work that her office does would help her. And I'm sure she would appreciate the extra help to just be able to navigate the workflow of the committees.
You're done? Okay. I kind of agree with you on that, coordinator, just because of the follow-up that is needed with presenters, getting information to the community, the timeliness of that. We haven't had a commissioner liaison. I won't say his name since, I don't know, has it been 10 years? 4 years? Oh, okay. But I don't know. We can keep it moving. That can be a conversation later. Commissioner Howard. Keep rolling.
Hey, Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director. I did want to go back to SAFER. So one of the reasons why SAFER is different than COPS is because of minimum manning language that's in the fire department labor agreement. So we have worked with the fire department and looked at their staffing reports. The original proposal and the proposed budget was for 6 firefighter positions and overtime, so that was for $930,000 in the budget. After looking at it further and including the extension that we're able to get with the funding that we estimate at least $500,000 that may be remaining in the grant for the same dollar amount, we would be able to fund 12 firefighters. We do recognize that in the 2028 budget, we would have more of a lift to fund that in the future. That's about a $400,000 increase to the future budget. However, with minimum manning, if you look, we did some comparisons. So current SAFER staffing levels just for the first 2 quarters, they were calling overtime shifts about 24% of the time. That's whenever their staffing for that shift drops below 100 individuals, and they have 3 shifts rotating basis. So if we were to fund 12 positions, that'd be roughly 39% of the time that we estimate that they would have to call in overtime based on the first 2 quarters of this year. If we go to 6 positions, that's over half the time. Again, we get to where overtime becomes more expensive than hiring a position. And we see the overtime number jump from about 300,000 to 1.4 million in those scenarios. And we just don't believe that the scenario that we proposed is very realistic, that they would be able to meet those targets. So we're proposing that with those resources, we change that to 12 firefighters and then add some additional capital since we were not able to fund fire apparatus in this budget. This also keeps them to a 4% growth rate for their department between the 2026 original and 2027 amended budget. And this was something that we did talk about in one of the budget workshops last week. We just wanted to bring it back for the full commission.
So does this, Commissioner, okay. I don't want to speak this out in public. Go ahead, Commissioner Pacheco.
So my question would be, so when we get to 2028, just help me understand then, do we have a plan to get to a staffing level that is currently what we are operating under SAFER?
So that would require us to go up another at least 5 positions beyond what's here. We're just showing what it would be in 2028 to go with the 12 position scenario of the 17. So this does not fully fund the 17 positions.
And so then those remaining 5 positions, somebody help me understand then, so what happens?
So currently, in the analysis, we did see that there's scheduled and unscheduled leave that's part of the daily rotation between IOD and paid time or time off. I guess there's the fire department could look at reallocating some staff amongst their functions to shore up their daily staffing levels from other areas, or hopefully with funding a third-party administrator for workers' comp IOD, maybe that could shift some of that time back out into the field. But that is something that we won't know until we get to that point.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so this also does not recommend laying off positions that are currently funded with SAFER.
We're not
It's just-
recommending that,
Yeah.
but, I mean, have we taken that into account? Retirements and just through attrition?
So basically what would happen with this scenario is that as vacancies occurred, we would not have another recruit class until they got to the point where they were below this new staffing level.
Okay. Okay.
So the next thing we wanted to talk about was the amended budget. We did have some questions about the amended budget during the budget presentation. So just kind of walk through what the changes are to the amended budget. So resource-wise, when we were here last year, we were projecting $5.3 million less for fund balance than where we're at now for the city general fund specifically. So the city general fund ended 2025 $5.3 million higher than what we what we budgeted. So that's new resources that we have available, as well as we have $2.6 million in an ongoing revenue that we've been able to identify as part of a revenue reforecast. So that brings about $8 million of additional resources into the 2026 amended budget process. Expenditures, looking at personnel, we've had to add $1.1 million to the personnel budget to fully fund our personnel for 2026 based on activity that's happened between the budget cycles. One-time CIP investments. So we've added $900,000 in additional investment into 2026 for one-time expenses, enhancements, knowing that we had a higher fund balance, unexpected operational costs. So those are things like the main cost drivers there are fuel costs going up. Everybody knows the price of the pumps is significantly increased, as well as our jail billings have significantly increased. So we've added that into the budget. We've added a small amount for some service level adjustments, and then there's some transfers that we have to make. So those are probably one of the more substantial items. So the two transfers are there's some money that was spent out of the Turner Fire Station that was spent out of a project fund that we have to reimburse that project fund for that expense. And then there was some personnel costs that we're reimbursing the aging fund for that should have been paid to the city in a prior year. Those adjustments were not made in those years. So we're using one-time fund balance to cover those adjustments. So basically that's $4.8 million in new expenses. So our original use of fund balance was 1.1 million. That's going to go up to 3.3, but overall, between the original 2026 budget and then the 2026 amended budget, it's a positive $3.1 million on fund balance. Any questions?
Do you know what the cost is or balance is of uncollected fees?
I think that would probably be more of a finance question.
So Mayor, if you could say a little
Or,
bit.
you know, uncollected property tax or whatever?
Oh,
So I know that we budget a 6% delinquency rate on our property tax.
Okay.
right. And we can get you some more data on that in terms of, so people can be behind up to 3 years, but that's when you go to the delinquent tax sale. We've seen those come down significantly. So we'll get you the numbers on that.
Okay. Commissioner Ramirez?
Thank you, Mayor. You may or may not have this information available, but for last year's the property tax, what was the actual delinquency rate? Do we know? Because I know we were budgeted about, you said 6, correct?
Yes.
Do we know the actual delinquency rate, or if the clerk would know?
Actually, that'd be the Treasury Department, and we'll get that too when we pull that data. It went down. We saw a positive trend, so I just don't know the exact percent.
Okay, you can proceed.
Okay, the county general fund is a little bit more straightforward. So once again, 2025, we ended the year $3 million better than what we budgeted, just due to higher revenues, lower expenses. And budgeting conservatively, that's what we hope for the budget. 2026 revenue forecast we've identified 3 million in additional revenues. So basically, the bulk of that would be motor vehicle taxes, just because the state has us follow a formula for an estimate that we have to put on our state forms. So we've kind of adjusted our process. So hopefully that shouldn't be the case in next year's budget. We have accounted for that already in next year's budget. But it's higher in this year's budget just due to that administrative process during the amended budget. Expenditure, so that's roughly $6 million in new resources that we didn't know about in last year's budget. And then new expenses, roughly 3.4 million. So of that, 2.2 million is personnel reforecast. The majority of that is sheriff personnel. Sheriff did exceed their personnel budget last year. So a few of the things that we've noticed, we were not budgeting for employee basically payouts. So if somebody retires or there's a contractual item where they can get paid back for a certain amount of their leave each year, we did not have that budgeted, as well as overtime. Their overtime is higher than expected this year, as well as there's some additional positions that have been budgeted. So that's up to about 2 million of that number. And then one-time capital investment, we've added about $95,000 to the budget, $214,000 of unexpected contractual costs, and higher costs that we anticipate that we're going to have to spend. Service level adjustments, roughly 499,000 there, and then interfund corrections. So it's the same thing we identified in a prior year, that there was money that was paid out of the debt fund that was supposed to be reimbursed from cash that was missed. So that's about 378,000 of that. That's one time. So prior net change was negative 920. So this puts our amended budget just $326,000 more at 1.24, and still we are ending $2.7 million up from where we originally projected for 2026 with the amended budget.
But you're still taking out of the that fund reserve.
We are taking a little bit more than we originally expected out of the fund balance for 2026, but due to ending the year better than we expected last year, the ending fund balance ends up being higher than what we had originally projected for 2026. And we would hope, fully budgeting personnel, that again, we don't spend all of our resources. And that is a strategy that we're trying to use to get our fund balance back up to the 3-month operating reserve, is fully funding our personnel costs.
So in that case, then why not adjust this is not on you, this is for staff, for departments. I'm having a problem with taking money out of the fund balance. I'm just having a problem. So if we've realized new resources for revenue, but then we're still going outside of the budget for expenditure adjustments, where are these adjustments? What are the service level adjustments we're trying to do? What are the additional personnel? Is that in the sheriff personnel only? Or is that across the board in other departments? Is it just the sheriff department, 2.14?
So the sheriff's department is the majority of the personnel increase, yes. And so that would allow the sheriff to fully fill all the budgeted positions that we have in the position inventory, as well as pay for the expected overtime cost and employee payouts that we would expect during the year. So, yes.
And so if we didn't have any of the fund money to do that, what would the sheriff's department do? It's not that I don't want them to have these positions. I'm just trying to get us to a place where we're not just, where is the discipline that we stick with the budget that we have and we work through this, but budget for the following year and stick to that budget instead of dipping in our fund balance every year? That's what I'm just trying to understand. we just keep making exception after exception after exception, and I don't get it. Commissioner Comp?
Thank you, Mayor. Come to at large. Might be a dumb question, might be because I come from the corporate world. Is our budget a suggestion when we budget for departments? I mean, and where I work, if you spend your budget in August, tough. I mean, quite frankly, so I just want to understand how this happens.
I'll ask budget to help me here.
1 second, Alan. Commissioner Ramirez had his hand up. I'm sorry, Commissioner Ramirez.
No, you're fine. Thank you, Mayor. Kind of two questions. My first question, I know, and Commissioner Bynum, you may be able to answer this since you're chair of EDNF. When you receive the budget reports throughout the year, do those budget reports reflect this information? Or does budget, can you say yes or no, does those budget reports because I try my best to read them and keep up to date with how the budget is being spent and all, does all of that reflected in those reports?
So the activity that we're seeing should be getting updated. Once the amended budget would pass, then the current budget would be replaced with these numbers for the following quarters. But the projections that we use for the budget would be coming from our live data, which would be reflected on those reports. And I will say that when we do personnel, since we're budgeting at 100%, we take that off of a live snapshot of our live workday data. So any changes that have been made, we only do that once a year. So any changes that have been made administratively between one budget cycle and the next budget cycle get caught at that point in time.
Thank you. I was just curious about if that information was. My second thing is comment, going to what the mayor and Commissioner Kump was saying. I know one thing, as long as I was here, a former commissioner would say, and I would agree, we kind of do, and there's no problem with it, doing it that way, but believe we are very conservative when we put our budget together. Again, there's no problem, there's no issue with being conservative. But again, going back to, we're budgeting a 6% delinquency rate, but let's say for example, last tax year, there was only a 3% delinquency rate. So then maybe this year moving forward, let's not do 6%, let's lower that down to 4 or 4.5%, so that we're not so conservative. And so that these problems like this don't always have to happen as the year goes on. So that's just a comment I would like to offer. Thank you.
Interim County Administrator House, and then Commissioner Bynum, and then Commissioner Davis.
So I think maybe also shed a little light on the sort of the additional personnel that were budgeted for or added outside of the budget process, because I think that's also part of that is a significant part of what's sort of driving the additional personnel cost here. And I'll just say one of the things that we have done in the 27 introduced budget is to make it sure that it is structurally balanced and that we are fully funding positions at 100%, and that when we've had this conversation about actively managing the budget through the year so that we do not get into positions where, we're facing this kind of challenge. And also, if there are significant changes in the budget, my position is that those need to come back to the governing body. You all are the appropriators of dollars. I mean, that is a fundamental role, is the appropriation of dollars, and that there shouldn't be surprises for you in the 26 amended that that are significant changes that you hadn't seen before. Budget, anything you all want to add? You don't have to, but.
You're fine. Commissioner Bynum.
Thanks. I do not want to speak for the sheriff. But I would ask both our CFO and our legal to speak to the sheriff's funding. Because we've had years in the past where the sheriff has come forward with his budget requests to tell us what he needs. And the statute says we will fund the sheriff. So we fund the sheriff. And I'm not making a judgment. I'm just stating the reality of what the statute says, if you wanted to speak to that.
You've stated it correctly that the statute says we will fund the sheriff, and he is under quite a few federal mandates and regulations on the level of care he has to provide the inmates. So we are required to do that.
Commissioner Davis.
I was just going to add, just in transparency, the budget process last year, while we moved to funding 100% of all positions, that was true for every department except for the sheriff, where we did have a number of positions that he was approved to hire should he be able to recruit people for, but we had not funded it. So not the best practice, not where we're moving to, but there was some transition there going on because there's a lot beyond the sheriff's control, the number of inmates, for example. And so there was that, plus it just normal attrition, just normal turnover. And they have minimum staffing requirements for the jail. They don't control the jail population, the courts do. And so once you have overtime expenses, you have to pay them. The employees have worked. Federal law requires you to pay them. So it's really a combination of things that led to that. But we were in a transition year to get to 100% during the 26 budget year. And overtime just to cover minimum staffing for the jail are two of the challenging things that he's had to face. So just sharing that, again, no, it's not a suggestion, but it is a reality to what occurred. And we're in a transition of trying to fix that.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I think on that note, Interim County Administrator House, I know we've talked about, there used to be a committee that would focus on the jail population and what that looks like. And I think this is a good time for us. And I know on the back of this sheet here with all of the budget changes, there are different things that committees look at, but maybe for Public Works and Public Safety, I know I'm kind of volunteering work, but I think there's some opportunity here with new colleagues to kind of reset how we approach this, because we are often getting this information on the back end, and the constitutional office is thrown in our face, and it's like, well, there has to be some sort of solution here, right? Because we're not able to just keep funding it, and then not being able to fund other things in the budget, of course, and then really look at what is the solution, right? Not just to controlling the cost. Why do we have an overpopulated jail, right? And I think there are some deeper questions that is the origin of our frustration that we've just not really dived into in the past. And so that would be my recommendation for how we address this moving forward. And I think Commissioner Ramirez brought up a really great point. I want to reiterate, we should get in the quarterly updates a request, because this is my 5th time doing this. These decisions should not be made administratively because they impact the rest of what we have approved. And quite frankly, we should have the department heads come in and say, here's why I need to adjust my budget. And there should be a threshold of, if you go beyond 5% or 3% of what you were approved, you need to come back to us and tell us why. We don't just include it, write the check, and then it comes budget time, let's amend the budget. I do want to ask a question because the way that this presentation is formatted, it's slightly confusing to me. So this, right, what we're looking at here for budget staff is for the amended budget for the county. And then on slide 7, we have the proposed budget, and then you have the 2026 amended column. And the way that I'm reading this, the numbers aren't lining up. So am I misreading this, or is there a version that's more up to date? It just, when I look at, for example, the net change in the fund balance, just how am I supposed to reconcile? And I'm specifically referencing slide 7, column 2026 amended budget, that data with this data here on slide 10.
So it is meant to be the same information, and it is the 2026 amended net change. I will say, just for simplicity, I tried to round the numbers just so there wasn't as much detail on the slide. But it is the basic. So on slide 7, the 2026 amended net change was 1,245,718, and this is 1,246,000 down towards the bottom, the 2026 amended net change.
Gotcha. And then, okay, so the information that you are presenting to us is additional to this, but it is consistent with it. Because I was trying to place this information in kind of the forecast in the normal table that we look at.
It's basically the differences between the original budget and the amended budget. So it's the incremental changes that were made it's just a different way to look at the incremental changes that were made between the 2026 original budget and the 2026 amended budget for the county.
And that difference is the cash basis ending funding balance. Is that what you're saying? That's how do we get the 2.6 million at the bottom? That's really my question.
So for that piece of information is missing because the 2025 budget is not on the long range forecast, but it's the difference between, yes, it should be the difference between, it should be the difference between the 2026 original and the 2026 amended budget. And I do see that number is not quite this 2.6, but that's what it should be.
Okay. I think we would just need, because I know it's getting late, just some updated numbers.
Yeah, I'll make sure that they drive.
We're able to reconcile and I mean, I'm assuming, and we don't have to go through it, but the same for the city general amendment.
It'd be the same for the city. Yes.
Yeah, that those two slides are reconciled so that we're just getting the same information and we're able to follow along would be helpful, but really good information. This is different from what we've gotten last time, so I can understand where things could get a little bit missed, but I would just ask for that to be fixed and sent to us, but thank you.
Yeah, we'll make sure it ticks and ties. We are trying to show it in a way that kind of differentiates or brings forward why it's moving.
And there is more detail in the supplemental packet that we sent out yesterday. So this is a summarized version of even that.
So just for the point of clarification, what you're showing us right now, this one is 2026.
Yes.
So
And it should say 2026 amended.
because you're just putting numbers together. You're wanting us next week to approve to amend 2026, correct? And that we're going to take out of the fund that net balance of 326,000,
It was originally 920,000. So
but now it's down to 326.
no, it would be the 1.246. It's a difference of,
I'm sorry, and the net balance is,
the difference between the original and the amended is 326,000 additional use of fund balance.
oh, so that doesn't mean anything. We just, I mean, it does, but the 1.2 is what you're asking to take out, what you want.
Yes, that is the proposed budget number.
Okay. And then the slides before were for 2027.
These are both 2026, and then I'm going to go through 2027 in a minute.
Okay,
so-
and is that
So this is,
closing with the mill increase? or it's current?
2026, you cannot change the mill for 2026. That's what you said, but the 2027, it would include the additional mill.
Okay. Are you gonna, will you show us what it is without the mill? Like you did last time?
We have the dollar amount. We don't have a slide specifically for it.
Okay. Go ahead.
So this is the 2027 budget. So the base 2027 budget for the city, the base revenue forecast was $192 million. And that's just basically the 2026 revenue forecast. So we've identified 10.9 or $11 million of additional revenues through the budget. So of that, 5.9 would be property taxes. We've broken that out here, also in the supplemental packet. So 2.32 million of that would just be base valuation increase. 1.54 million was a mill shift from the bond and interest fund. We will point out that that was able to happen because we're holding debt down to a level where we're only issuing debt that's rolling off. So we're able to shift that additional mill capacity over to the operations of our cash fund. And then the additional mill would be 2.05 million. So, yep. So the remaining 4.7 million additional in sales taxes we're projecting. We did have to drop the pilot. So those are the two other largest single incremental changes to the budget on the revenue side. So it's an addition of $11 million to the revenue side. On the expense side, we're budgeting $8.9 million. The proposed budget has $8.9 million of additional expenses. Of that, $5.85 million is personnel, $3 million of that is operating, and $320,000 is capital. So the largest cost drivers on the expense side are the COLAs. So the cost of living adjustments for non-union and union employees is roughly $4 million. So that $5.85 million. Employer health contributions is another $800,000. Jail billing increases. Sheriff's changing the billing rate for the city jails, so that's another $800,000 on the operating side, and then just general systems maintenance agreements is another $724,000. And all this is itemized out in the supplemental packet that we have as well. So basically, that would result in a projected $37 million ending fund balance, or 19% of the revenue or of expenditures.
We have a question from Commissioner Bynum.
I'm sorry. I think that might be the second time you've referenced a supplemental packet. And I'm not sure I know what you're referencing.
So there was an email, or there was a packet that we prepared. I guess, do you want to pull it up for a minute?
Commissioner Bynum, it would have been in your updated agenda.
It was in the updated agenda.
I have an
Okay.
extra if you need it.
And that was in the agenda update that we received this morning. Okay. I'm good. I don't have my laptop and my phone is dead and
Mics are gonna die.
he's got it, Monica. The administrator gave it to me. So this, to reiterate, is in the agenda packet that the update was sent this morning. Is that what I'm hearing, seeing?
The PowerPoint that you're seeing was not in your packet.
Uh-huh.
You should have that at your
This
desk.
was.
Yes.
Okay, but again,
Get it.
this came this morning, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's okay. It's okay. I can look at it. We did a lot of tornado stuff today, and sorry, it wasn't a tornado.
It's just a lot to try to go through.
It's okay. I just was getting confused on this supplemental packet that I never saw. So thank you.
Would it be helpful to go to that? Would it be helpful to go to that packet instead of the PowerPoint for a minute, or no? No, okay.
No, we don't know.
Okay. Okay, so basically this is a summary of what's in that packet. So this is a summary of the incremental changes that were made to the budget, and there is more detail broken out in the packet.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, or Madam Mayor. Sorry, it is
Okay.
late
Yep.
and 13. Um, with that in mind, I share the frustration of Commissioner Bynum. I was not aware there was a supplemental information. I know the clerk mentioned that it was in the commission office in a folder with my name, but I was not given that folder, so I did not have that information. Um, I would like time to review this new information. I don't know if budget is asking for direction tonight or you were just providing information. Okay.
Commissioner Howard.
Our District 1, within the budget process, do we always get supplemental packets?
It depends on what the topic is, what the questions are.
Question, before you go that far, how long have you been here?
I've been working in budget for over 11 years, 12 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Even though it depends, is it customary to give out a supplement package?
We do sometimes.
Yes or no? Thank you. Okay. So with that being said, if we do this all the time, why is it that we're getting this first thing in the AM if we need that information to make decisions? If we know.
It does take time to get the data together.
I'm aware. We want to give you the time that you need. What I'm asking is, if it does take time, is it the day of?
And when you say the day of,
Do you think it's appropriate, not you specifically, whoever's preparing the information, do you think it's appropriate if we're going to have a conversation that we have that information before us? And I'll just speak for me as an elected, newly elected anyways. I'm not customary to the budget process, right? So if that's something that we need, if that's important, shouldn't it be before us a little bit before the day of? Even though it takes time, could we get it the day before?
Yeah, and I'll jump in, Commissioner. The answer is yes.
Okay.
And the budget team is working, as we've been putting this budget together, we've shifted how we're doing the budget. And this is new. This is different from how we have done sort of budgeting presentation and information to you all in the past, just in the same way that the budget workshops last week were new to how we've done things in the past. So that is part of the reason we would like to get it to you before and recognize that it puts you all in a disadvantage, which we don't want to do in these conversations. But just to give you a little bit of context, and that's something that we'll be working on if we get that information sooner. So I hear your frustration.
And it's not a right or wrong or pointing a finger. It's just understanding the process of how we do things. That's just really it for me. So I just want to take some of the energy down. It's just me really understanding the process as a newly elected. And so I myself, if I do have to make decisions, I don't want the information the day of because I'm kind of slow. So it takes me a little while to consume that information, if that makes sense. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. Commissioner Davis.
May I proffer an idea? It's 10:20, perhaps we call it a night. Give us some time to go ahead and review this information that staff put together. There's no way. I don't even know if I can vote on the budget at this point next week. So perhaps we use the 28th as a round two. That gives us a week to look through this. And then maybe we look at September 3rd or sometime in September to actually put the budget up for adoption. But I don't, this is just too much in the format to digest and then meaningfully have a conversation. And if we are like confused on the formatting and then the numbers aren't lining up, I can only imagine what our community is watching. So that would be my recommendation, is that we don't even go any further and call it a night and then just pick up sometime next week. That would be my suggestion, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, are the rest of the commissioners in agreement to that? If you just thumbs up it for me. I just will say this, that I think you all have done a great job, budget, finance. I think that in your defense, when we're making last minute changes, and I know those changes have been made to you, which probably might have delayed the packet. It's understandable, but we do just want to make sure we're listening to the commissioners. This is a lot of information. You've made some, I think, positive changes that has helped us better understand the information, but in that there's a lot more to it because you're giving us exactly what we want. You've line item things. This is what we've asked for. They just need more time. You've got several commissioners that are new to the process and a mayor who's new to the process as well. So let's just keep working together. I see this as a positive thing and not a negative. I thank everybody for your comments, and at this time, I need a motion to adjourn. Oh, my God.
Our motion to
Oh,
adjourn.
hold on. Commissioner Davis. got
One more thing. I think the big contention is going to be on whether or not to do the 1 mil levy increase. And so I would like direct slides that just says, okay, if we do not raise the mill at all, what does that mean, right? If we do, what does that mean? A clear slide that delineates that for the county and the city. We don't need more presentations, just two clear slides that make that known to us would be very, very helpful. Thank you, Mayor, and I will make a motion to adjourn.
And sorry, I just want to, in that one, to clarify, you say you want to see that. Are you asking, so part of what is in this information is the sort of the puts and takes on what's been added and that sort of thing. And that's really kind of where we were going. And we had a lot on the agenda tonight, so we didn't get there. But the discussion among this body as to what you want in and what you want out, if you want to make changes. So I guess I just want to understand if you're asking for us to come back with recommended or suggested changes, or do we want to look at the budget and continue the conversation? And if there's not a desire to add additional revenue to the budget, what do you want to take out? Because I don't want staff to sort of assume that responsibility or that role of putting that forward of what you all may or may not want to do.
I guess for me, it would be, to Commissioner Davis' state, it would be helpful. We know that staff has included the additional mill levy, and that has created new opportunities, new positions, capital projects, debt, things of that nature. Whatever extra things were added because of that additional mill levy, that's what I would like to see. And I know that there are some positions, like a housing coordinator would be one, right? There are some positions for economic development. You have sci-fi. We have some things that we weren't doing last year that we know the additional mill gives us the room to do. And so those are the things that I think we could start with. Are there others? For sure. When we all go through this packet, we can, talk about it, but that would be my recommendation. I think could really help get to the meat and the brass tacks of the decisions that we need to make.
Thank you. Would it help if I say it was in the supplemental packet?
Attorney Lawson.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I want to clarify that Monday's vote is whether or not the unified government will be revenue neutral, which is different than the 1 mil increase. Those are two different calculations, which one of the finance members would have to do, not me, but also the clerk would like to know if Thursdays, if she should leave the vote on the agenda and see how you feel, or if that should be removed from the agenda, because that will be going out tomorrow.
According to Commissioner Davis, no, we do not vote on the 28th. We wait until September 3rd. because we've had supplemental information that we need to digest. Is the rest of the commission board okay with that? Thumbs up, yeah? Commissioner Bynum?
Mayor, Michael, I just want to clarify that it was the words. You were referencing supplemental information, and I was hearing it as if the budget division had sent us an email that I didn't receive, and that is not what happened. What happened was you apparently gave the clerk an agenda update. And so we got an updated agenda this morning, which I opened and scrolled through to see what had changed on the agenda, and I didn't really see anything. So we were busy and I moved on to other things. So I just wanted to clarify where I was coming from because I was just getting confused by this terminology of supplemental packet when what really happened was we got a bunch more information in our agenda packet. And so my question with all that is, when we get an updated agenda, which we do receive on a fairly frequent basis, maybe to the commissioners, some sort of heads up about what's different. Why is it updated? What's new? Thank you, Mayor. I'll stop.
Commissioner Howard?
Howard District 1, I make a motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Bynum, second.
It's been moved by Howard and second by Bynum. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Pacheco.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Hump.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Vote is 9-0. The motion carries.
We were sitting at the table.